Chapter 824. In the Forbidden Land of Fallen Moons. Curious, Yu Yuan stared curiously at the Thousand Tribulations Ghost King in front of him. Under his gaze, the Thousand Tribulations Ghost King's face, which had been blurry before, changed into a face that looked exceptionally pure and beautiful. She had an oval face, long, thin eyebrows, fair skin, clear eyes, and a shy, gentle smile on her face. However, her figure was extremely sexy. Her waist was incomparably slender, and her buttocks were perfectly round. Furthermore, her exposed snow-white breasts were swollen up high. The Thousand Tribulations Ghost King had a voluptuous figure. Her face was beautiful, her temperament was pure, and her body was hot and sexy. The combination of these three made her very attractive. "I've asked about you, kid." She stretched lazily in front of the beehive, purposely revealing her figure. The turbid demon fetus she was in didn't have any supernatural powers, which allowed her to move freely without any restrictions. Her slender waist stretched out at an exaggerated angle, making her breasts look even more magnificent. The formation core in that forbidden land is connected to your mind. You received that person's sword Tao legacies, so you can be considered his successor. That's why the Dark Star Capital is so afraid of you. Tiansong is hiding in the forbidden land of fallen moons for two reasons. Many heavenly devils, phantasm souls, and earth devils have swarmed into the forbidden land of fallen moons. The other reason is that he's looking for a way to deal with the Dark Star Capital. He knows that the person who damaged the Dark Star Capital used to guard the forbidden land of fallen moons. That's why he's hiding in there. She steered the beehive to a stop in front of Yu Yuan, where she stared straight at Yu Yuan from a few meters away. "Stay away from me!" Luo Yu snorted coldly. "Remember, Thousand Tribulations, you're not the Hornet Queen anymore. Don't you dare use the same trick on my junior martial brother." "Junior martial brother?" Thousand Tribulations was surprised. Luo Yu thought that since Chao Jiazi knew about her identity, he should know that Yu Yuan was the successor of the medicine god Hanch. Therefore, she didn't try to hide anything. "It has nothing to do with you. Does Tiansong know that the Dark Star Capital is still alive?" Thousand Tribulations looked at Chao Jiazi. "Tiansong has known about the Nether Capital for a long time." Chao Jiazi explained, "I was the one who told Qianjia that Ghoul King Tianzong was most likely a hidden competitor. When Mingdu woke up, he told me that Tianzong would be a threat, and told me to keep an eye on him. Tianzong is very mysterious. He's been in the Land of Terror for many years. He doesn't really fight for anything." Luo Yu said, "I didn't fight for it in the past because it was meaningless." Qianjia hesitated for a moment and said, "From what I know, Tiansong is older than Mingdu. He is the Ghost King before Mingdu. Mingdu appeared out of nowhere and shook the world 1,000 years ago. When he was dominating the Land of Terror, he also left quietly. When Mingdu was at its strongest, he hid from them and disappeared for many years. After Mingdu's accident in the Outer Realms, he only returned after a few years. Not long after he came back, he disappeared again. This Tianzong is a Ghost King, but he doesn't spend much time in the Land of Terror. The Thousand Tribulations Ghost King used to be the Queen Bee of the Goblin Temple. She knew a lot about the Land of Terror." After she finished speaking, she looked at the silent white bone. "You and Mingdu belong to the same generation as Tianzong. You should know him better than I do." Yu Yuan and Chao Jiazi's gazes fell on White Bone. White Bone was temporarily trapped by the turbid devil fetus. Its body was colorful, and it was still being poisoned. Its intelligent green eyes looked a little muddle-headed. Chao Jiazi waved a hand. Suddenly, thousands of wisps flew out of White Bone's skull like lightning. This caused White Bone's eyes to clear, and its floating consciousness to gather. "Lord Yuling, please enlighten me," Chao Jiazi said politely. "Tianzong was never in the same generation as us." White Bone's tone was indifferent. "No one knows how long he lived in the Land of Terror. When Mingdu was born, Tianzong was already a ghost king. Just like you know, he was often not in the land of terror even before that. It was easy to overlook him. Even before that? Chao Jiazi's expression changed slightly. When I first became a ghost king, I found some information. I could only deduce that he was a ghost king 5,000 years ago. I couldn't find anything older, Whitebone said calmly. Therefore, he has lived for at least 5,000 years, maybe even longer. 5,000 years. Luo Yu, Thousand Tribulations, and Chao Jiazi exclaimed. They all knew the secrets of the land of terror. They knew that the ghost kings often changed. 1,000-year ghost king was a long time, but they had never heard of a 5,000-year ghost king. According to Whitebone, Tianzong was at least 5,000 years old. What did that mean? No wonder, Yu Yuan nodded slightly. No wonder Chao Jiazi brought Thousand Tribulations in to discuss Tianzong. My sect master has a guess. Chao Jiazi's expression was serious. He thinks that Tianzong is most likely an expert of the Shenhun sect. After his death, his Yin soul switched to the ghost path. The Shenhun sect was destroyed 10,000 years ago. The timing matches. You support Nether Capital because you think that Tianzong is a great cultivator of the Shenhun sect? Luo Yu suddenly thought it through. You all think that only after Nether Capital becomes a ghost god can they fight against Tianzong? That Tianzong can continue to hide and not come out? As expected of the former sect master of voodoo. You got it so quickly. Chao Jiazi nodded with a smile. Then, he looked at Whitebone and said, Lord Yuling, this is really a surprise to us. From beginning to end, we never thought that you would be Whitebone. We didn't expect you to suddenly appear and become a threat to Nether Capital before Tianzong. Then, he looked at Yu Yuan. We also didn't expect you to enter the land of despair with that person's scabbard. You came in with the Blue Devil's Tear to help Nether Capital. You also want to fight Tianzong? Yu Yuan asked curiously. Yes, Chao Jiazi said. Tianzong hasn't shown up yet. Are you not confident? Are you worried that he will come back at the most critical moment? Yu Yuan grinned. He suddenly felt a little gloating and calmed down. If Sect Master Xuantianzong's guess was correct, Tianzong was indeed an expert of the Shenhun sect who had switched to the ghost path. Tianzong was definitely extraordinarily powerful. He knew that Whitebone and the source of the Yin veins had chosen him, while Nether Capital had been chosen by the 5 supreme sections. Tianzong was the chosen ghost god of the Shenhun sect. As for himself, his soul connection with the soul-transforming lake was very strange, and he practiced the great Yin soul incantation and the extreme wisdom soul-tempering incantation. He believed that Tianzong wouldn't see him as an enemy if he came. I suddenly have a feeling that if this kid gets out of here and communicates with that strange lake again, and the spatial tunnel reappears, Tianzong might come back directly. The voluptuous Thousand Tribulations Ghost King narrowed her eyes and stared at Yu Yuan with a smile. You've done well, Chao Jiazi. You've saved us a lot of trouble by getting this kid here. If Tianzong is in the forbidden land of the fallen moons, Chao Jiazi said, once the sealing heaven soul transforming formation is activated, it will be very difficult for him to return to the land of despair within a breath's time. Tianzong. However, Yu Yuan didn't say anything. Instead, he frowned and pondered. He wondered if Tianzong was one of the top 10 crooks in the forbidden land of the fallen moons. Chapter 825. Yu Yuan had a feeling that Tianzong was one of the top crooks in the forbidden land of the fallen moons. Unlike the heavenly devil Cyan Nightmare and Grand Emperor Heaven Shaking, Tianzong should be able to get rid of the sealing heaven soul transforming formation and enter the forbidden land of the fallen moons at will. That was the only way he could return to the land of terror whenever he wanted to. Then, when the Dark Capital united the Starry River, he would be able to return to the forbidden land of the fallen moons, where he could continue to strengthen himself with the help of spirits and earth devils. With these thoughts in mind, he tried to communicate with his sword soul. However, the sword soul didn't respond to him at all, as it was still dormant in the turbid demon fetus. Only the sword soul knew a thing or two about the fierce crooks in the forbidden land of the fallen moons, since it could control the sealing heaven soul transforming formation from the soul transforming pool. Since the sword soul didn't respond, Yu Yuan couldn't confirm his speculation. The forbidden land of the fallen moons has a lot in common with the land of terror, the thousand tribulation ghost said. Heavenly devils, earth devils, and all kinds of crooked souls can be refined and devoured by Tian Song. It won't be easy to find him in the forbidden land of the fallen moons. We've already lost control of that forbidden land, Chao Jiazi said with a bitter expression. He knew that even the 5 great forces couldn't set foot in the land of terror. After devouring a vast amount of souls, the soul-transforming pool had completely recovered to its peak. Not only had it suppressed the sword scar formation, but it had also improved the sealing heaven soul transforming formation's grade. Now, even nascent divinity experts would be in danger if they entered the sealing heaven soul transforming formation. Plus, no one knew whether powerful experts from the Shunhun sect would suddenly appear in the tunnel that connected to the Starry River. If a nascent divinity expert from the Shunhun sect secretly came through the tunnel and activated the sealing heaven soul transforming formation, even the sect master of the Xuantianzong sect wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. After another round of discussion, the Thousand Tribulation Ghost King said, "Get me out of here." Sure. Chao Jiazi didn't force the issue. Now that he had gotten his answer, he took the turbid demon fetus out of the hive. Chao Jiazi's soul shadow also disappeared. My bones are being corroded. My power is weakening. White Bone's clear eyes became muddled again. Wait until Mingdu's body returns. Wait until he recovers. When I go out, I won't be his match. With a closer look, one could see that his bones were filled with gray, black, and deep purple foreign substances. Some of the weaker parts of his bones had faint cracks. The dim light in his eyes meant that his soul power was being drained away with every passing moment. As a ghost king, once he left the turbid devil fetus, he would be able to quickly recover with the help of the source of the Yin Meridians and the Nether River. The damage to the bone body couldn't be healed in a short time. Me too, Luoyu said helplessly. My spiritual tool is being destroyed. My soul will be fine for now because of the protection of this artifact. However, if this item is destroyed, my soul won't be able to survive in this damned place for long. Yu Yuan sighed and said, I just feel weak. Everything else is fine. After being tempered by the fiend body tempering art, his body could withstand the corrosion of all kinds of flowing light. As long as he didn't use the fiend body tempering art and didn't take the initiative to absorb all kinds of power into his body, this body could absorb the minuscule amount of power inside the turbid devil fetus. The absorbed power would be used to repair the damaged body and maintain a delicate balance. His sense of weakness came from his soul. He couldn't communicate with the artifact soul, UE, the sword soul, or the soul transforming pool. He also didn't know where the source of the Yin Meridians was. On the other hand, there were all kinds of distracting thoughts mixed with the strange soul thoughts that kept pouring into his Naiwan acupoint. Dealing with all of this exhausted him. Let's all think of a way, Luoyu said and closed her eyes inside the flower basket. White Bones was also silent. Several days later, a palm-sized shell landed on the Yin Mountain where Mingdu and Jiang Xingwen were at with a plop sound. Chao Jiazi, who had been sitting for a long time, suddenly opened his eyes. It's here. The shell disappeared, and the Yin Mountain started to grow taller at a speed visible to the naked eye. Splash! Splash! Deep underground, the Nether River that had dried up for 1,000 years started to flow again. The heavenly Tao laws of the land of terror had also quietly changed when the shell fell. Boom! Boom! The two majestic Een mountains that belonged to the Black Staff and the frigid abyss suddenly collapsed. The Een mountains under their jurisdiction shrank from high to low. The ghosts and souls that were once loyal to the Black Staff and the frigid abyss all fled the Een mountains in panic and stared blankly at the strange changes. They watched as the Een mountains collapsed or shrank, and felt the Een energy thinning. At the same time, the Een mountains within 500 kilometers of the dark nether capital were slowly growing taller. The amount of Een energy pouring into the ground was almost 10 times more than before. All the ghosts that had sought refuge with Jiang Xingwen because of the soul-crossing river were cheering from all directions. They cheered the name of the dark nether capital. The white-robed ghost and the 8 ancient ghosts led by the Qianqiang ghost had already left the 1,000 tribulations and floated in the sky. "This one belongs to me." The Qianqiang ghost roared and entered a growing Een mountain. The other 7 ancient phantoms spread out and occupied the mountain peak. Mingdu's body returned, and he instantly returned to the Ghost King realm. He gathered his karmic luck and caused the nether river that corresponded to him to grow wider. As expected of the dark nether capital, Chao Jiazi, who was looking around, clicked his tongue in wonder when he saw the magical changes in this world. Because of the return of Mingdu's body, the territory that originally belonged to the Grey Granny Ghost seemed to have become the center of the land of terror. Naturally, dense Een energy gathered, causing the Een mountains to grow taller quickly. The area where the 5 great ghost kings used to be seemed to have shifted and become the outer edge of the land of terror. Mingdu was the land of terror. The Een mountains were the tallest and densest, and the Een energy was the densest. Chao Jiazi's gaze looked at the white bone territory. His mind moved and he suddenly said, "It seems that this place was the center of the land of terror 1,000 years ago. The former Ghost King Yu Ling's territory and Mingdu's current territory bordered each other 1,000 years ago." "You're right. This place and Yu Ling's side gathered the strongest souls 1,000 years ago." The tall Mingdu walked over from the Een mountains. "My body is gathering Een energy. When my soul and body merge, you can let Yu Ling and that Yu Yuan out." Chao Jiazi nodded. "I was waiting for you to say that." Chapter 826. Jiang Xingwen, dressed in a long gray robe, floated out of the tall Een mountain. She looked even thinner and more delicate. Her Een spirit looked slightly illusory, as though she had just been injured. Tiny crimson bolts of lightning flashed in her soul. This caused her to frown from time to time with a pained expression. She stood in front of Een mountain and looked at nether capital affectionately. She felt that the tall nether capital was incomparably majestic and filled with masculine charm. Chao Jiazi saw her infatuation with nether capital clearly. "Why did you come out?" Nether capital turned around and flew over with heartache. He said with concern, "Stay in this Een mountain that belongs to me and recuperate. Don't worry, your soul injury won't be a problem. It won't be long before I can ascend to the ghost god realm. I won't let you suffer anymore." "I did it willingly. You don't have to blame yourself," Jiang Xingwen said softly. Be good and go back," nether capital urged. "Amen." Jiang Xingwen smiled faintly. She seemed to have become an innocent girl who had just awakened to love. She listened to and trusted her lover. She really returned to Een Mountain. Nether capital waved his hand. Thick Een energy poured into Een Mountain and formed an isolation barrier. "Does she know you're using her?" Chao Jiazi frowned. Before entering the land of terror, Chao Jiazi had a secret conversation with the sect master of Xuantianzong and learned of an extremely secret matter. That great sword immortal, whose killing power was unparalleled in Hauran, once had a woman he loved. The woman was born and raised in the Tianyuan continent. Her surname was Jiang, and she cultivated in the Taiyuan sect. When she met that moon-severing great cultivator, He was already a Freedom Realm Great Sword Immortal. When that person comprehended the 9 slashes of the sky, the woman surnamed Jiang was always by his side. When that person reached the nascent spirit realm and went to the depths of the universe to guard that sword prison, the woman surnamed Jiang stayed in Howren because her cultivation wasn't enough. When the woman finally reached the Yang spirit realm and traveled to the universe for the first time, she met with an unexpected situation. The woman surnamed Jiang was scared out of her wits. That person's temperament seemed to have changed greatly because of this matter. Later on, he broke off relations with the Sword Sect and the 5 supreme forces of Howren. Jiang Xingwen seemed to be that woman's descendant, who had entered the Taiyuan sect by accident. The incantations she practiced were also created by that woman and the moon-severing grand cultivators. It was also because of this that the sword aura and sword intent left behind in the soul-crossing river recognized her aura. As soon as she stepped into the land of terror, Mingdu, who was in the soul-crossing river, sensed that something was wrong from the subtle changes in the sword gleam and sword will. He had some guesses. Of course, it wasn't a coincidence that she was able to obtain the soul-crossing river. It was something that Mingdu had done on purpose. Mingdu had allowed her to obtain the soul-crossing river, which made her think that she was the weapon's soul. He would communicate with her soul all the time and subtly bewitch her. With his evil soul divine art, he unknowingly made Jiang Xingwen fall deeply in love with him. Every time the remaining sword gleam and sword intent in the soul-crossing river flared up, Mingdu would use her as a shield. When the remaining sword energy that even Mingdu feared sensed her elemental aura, he would hold back in time. It would only injure her, but not kill her. Her existence meant that Mingdu didn't have to constantly endure the corrosion of the sword gleam in the soul-crossing river. This also gave the Dark North capital more time to think, to plan, and to influence the land of terror. However, she had to replace Mingdu and suffer the soul torture. That was why she looked thinner and more haggard. Use! Mingdu snorted coldly, his face cold and emotionless. Brat Chow, what do you know? It was my good fortune that she was able to meet me, but it was also her good fortune. That's right, she's suffering for me now. However, when I advance to the ghost god realm, I will make up for it all. Also, perhaps I had other motives in the beginning. Now, just like how she wants to be with me, I have the same thoughts. You might think that I, Mingdu Ghostly King, as a ghostly being born in the land of terror, had a notorious reputation 1,000 years ago, and had been tainted by countless souls. I would never fall in love with a human girl like her. I also thought that you wouldn't, and I didn't dare to believe it. However, this is the truth. Through her, I can even tell what that man must have felt when he lost his true love and died in the Starry River. He suppressed the sword prison from the outside and shook the fallen moon forbidden land from the inside. He was supposed to serve the 3 high sects with all his heart. However, he was tainted by the soul pool and chose that path. I think that it has something to do with that woman's death. At this point, he turned back to look at the Een Mountain. I won't allow any accidents to happen to her. As long as I don't die, I will fulfill the promises I made. Mingdu's expression darkened and he said, if anything happens to her, I will be like that person and tear up all the agreements. With the power of the ghostly gods, your sect master and those people will seek justice. Chao Jiaza laughed dryly. Sorry, I was too narrow-minded. Several days later, as expected, the area where Mingdu was located became the center of the land of terror with the densest Een energy. Mingdu, who had yet to merge into his body, could already completely separate his soul from the soul-crossing river. This soul weapon that was famous throughout the world was the same as the shell that came from outer space. Mingdu was soaked in the Netherworld River. Mingdu absorbed the purest Een energy from the Nether River that corresponded to him and nourished his life. Your Highness! Your Highness! The white-robed ghost and the 8 ancient ghostly beings gathered behind Mingdu. Mingdu's sole figure became dozens of meters tall and floated in front of the majestic Een Mountain. He looked down coldly at the blue devil's tear that had shrunk into a crystal in Chao Jiaza's palm and said, "It's about time." The white-robed ghost and the 8 ancient ghostly beings had reached the peak of power that titled ghosts could reach. The 9 ghostly beings had refined at Een Mountain. They cooperated with each other and were under Mingdu's command. Now, Chao Jiaza held the blue devil's tear in surprise. Without waiting for your soul and body to merge, without waiting for you to take back the soul-crossing river? I've heard of the blood spirit altar at the bottom of the Stardust Sea. Moreover, I've fought in outer realms before, and I know how powerful the killing weapons the sky demons spent a fortune to create are. Mingdu's expression became impassive as he stared at the blue crystal in Chao Jiaza's hand. White Bone, Luo Yu, and that Yu Yuan are half dead. I don't need to merge my soul and body with them. I have nothing to fear. He was completely confident. Let them out. The Qianxiang ghost bared his teeth and rubbed his hands. He looked cruelly at the blood spirit altar and said, "Yu Yuan, that brat, should die in the land of terror. His 3 souls must be delicious. Your Highness, please allow me to devour his soul and enjoy it to my heart's content." Mingdu's tone was indifferent. "If you can eat it, then you can eat it. Your Highness, I'm worried that Yu Yuan might be able to communicate with the soul-transforming lake in the forbidden land of the fallen moons." The white-robed ghost was very cautious. Even at a time like this, he still hadn't forgotten about this. The connection between our souls won't be affected by physical exhaustion. If he can make the soul-refining pool appear again, won't it be bad? After he said this, he noticed that the Qianxiang ghost and the other 7 ghostly beings were chuckling. "White Robe, you've only been loyal to the Lord for a short time. You don't know what it means to be in the land of terror once the Lord regains his peak strength." Another ancient monster looked at the blue devil's tear in disdain. "In a way, the Lord is a part of the land of terror." The Qianxiang ghost added, "Don't worry, White Robe. The current His Highness won't let that happen." With a few words, Chao Jiaza was convinced. "Now?" He looked at Mingdu. Mingdu nodded. "Now. All right." Chao Jiaza casually tossed the blue devil's tear into the air. It suddenly enlarged and transformed into the miraculous blood spirit altar. The turbid devil embryo wrapped around the blood spirit altar, and the blood spirit altar started to move violently. Yu Yuan, White Bone, and Luo Yu were thrown out of the altar. Chapter 8:27. Ha ha! The white-robed ghost couldn't help but laugh strangely when he saw the 3 being thrown out of the turbid devil fetus. After being eroded by many filthy flowing lights, White Bone's shining white bone body now looked rusty, as if it had been mercilessly corroded by time. Many parts of its short bone body were cracked, and it looked like a skeleton that had been thrown into a garbage dump. There was nothing magical about it anymore. The gorgeous flower basket that Luo Yu had refined also did not have the slightest bit of multicolored light. The exquisite and beautiful basket also looked tattered. Her soul was dispirited and weak. It was curled up in a corner of the flower basket, as if it was in a confused state. She and White Bones were now inside the turbid devil fetus, and they were severely injured. Because they were ghost kings, they had their own nether river in the netherworld, so they could recover quickly. For example, now when White Bones and Luo Yu came out, their corresponding nether river's water flowed faster. Even though they were far away, they could still absorb the Een energy of the 2 nether rivers. White Bones' muddled eyes lit up little by little, and the corners of his eyes sputtered with light. Luo Yu's blurry soul shadow also quickly became refined after she came out. In the land of terror, the vast Een energy was everywhere. When a ghost king's soul was healed, he only needed to rely on the Een energy to fill his soul and slowly recover. However, White Bone's body and the flower basket Luo Yu refined couldn't be repaired with energy. Bai Gu's White Bone body should have been refined with some kind of energy from the outside world. He must have gathered and refined those white flames in some strange place to make his bone body strong. If he wanted to recover his body and get rid of the filthy impurities inside, he had to leave the land of terror. He was strong because the white flames released by his bone body could purify the filthy souls. With the pure and holy power and light, he made the souls and ghosts in the land of terror tremble. After losing his bone body, his fighting strength was greatly reduced. Plus, his soul was seriously injured. How could he be Nether Dew's opponent? In the same way, Luo Yu's flower basket was a divine weapon that she had meticulously refined. It was her powerful soul weapon. Of course, the creation of this flower basket wasn't based on the Yin-Chi of the Land of Terror. If she wanted the flower basket to gather the rainbow-colored light again, she would need to go out of the Land of Terror and find a place where the rainbow-colored light shone brightly. Then, she would collect and refine the rainbow-colored light and pull it into the flower basket. Yu Yuan guessed that Luo Yu's flower basket was most likely related to the Zuan of Heaven-Reaching Peak. He had seen Zhu An's yang spirit body on the Heaven-Reaching Peak. It was shining brightly and was in high spirit. It was highly possible that Zhu An admired Luo Yu and knew that Luo Yu had been searching for the truth behind his previous life. That was why he took care of Luo Yu and collected all the light in the sky to help her refine this flower basket. Now that the flower basket was seriously damaged, she had to see Zhu An again if she wanted to recover. "You guys are very weak now." Chao Jiazi smiled. Not only were the two Ghost King's souls weak, but their powerful skeletal bodies and flower baskets were also seriously damaged. No matter how one looked at it, they were no match for Mingdu. On the other hand, Yu Yuan only looked weak and exhausted. In fact, he wasn't injured at all. Both his body and soul were intact and unharmed. Moreover, without the invasion of the flowing light and the infiltration of all kinds of complicated thoughts and evil thoughts, as soon as his mind cleared up, the 7 acupoints in his chest that were opened by the Yin sunflower essence immediately swallowed the nearby Yin Qi and absorbed it into the small world in his sea of consciousness. In a short period of time, he was full of energy again. Without saying anything, he took out a few pills from his mustard seed bracelet that could quickly replenish his qi, blood, and spiritual energy. After swallowing them, he hurriedly summoned the scabbard and stared at Mingdu. However, Mingdu didn't look at him. Instead, he frowned and stared at the skeleton. He said in a low voice, "Yu Ling, do you admit defeat?" The skeleton's body was seriously damaged, and its soul hadn't recovered. This skeleton was no longer on the same level as him. "I didn't think that someone as arrogant as you would choose to work with the 3 great sections." The skeleton's green eyes regained their focus. "I vaguely remember that the reason you ended up like this was because the 3 great sects of the Tianyuan continent ordered that person to attack you. Lord Baigu, there's no point in trying to sow discord now, right?" Chao Jiazi said with a smile. "Yu Ling, I don't care what you say." Mingdu snorted. "You should know that when I entered the universe, what I sought was the path of the ghost god. At that time, I turned to the outside world. And now, the land of despair has the conditions to help me become a ghost god. I will not miss this rare opportunity." Hearing his words, White Bones fell silent. At this time, Yu Yuan secretly communicated with the source of the Yin vein. The source of the Yin vein, which could transmit its will through any nether river, suddenly became silent. There was a nether river that was connected to Mingdu at the bottom of the river. However, when Yu Yuan tried to communicate with it, he couldn't sense the will of the source of the Yin vein at all. Instead, he sensed bits and pieces of sword intent left behind by Moon's severing realm cultivators. He immediately realized that the soul-crossing river had fallen into the Nether River, and that the Nether River had strengthened it with the power of the Nether River. The soul-refining pool. Seeing that the source of the Yin vein didn't respond, he tried to communicate with the forbidden land of the fallen moons. At this moment, the skeleton and Luo Yu were recovering their soul power with the help of the Yin Qi. Neither the flower basket nor the skeleton could do anything. He could only do his best to stir up trouble so that Mingdu and Chao Jiazi wouldn't have the time to deal with it. Even though they were separated by a great distance, he actually sensed the existence of the soul refining pool when he communicated with the forbidden land of the fallen moons. The Ghoul Kings subconsciously looked up at the sky. Chao Jiazi was surprised. He looked up at the murky sky and said, "You're really something, kid. You stayed in the turbid demon fetus for so long, but you still managed to communicate with the forbidden land of the fallen moons the moment you came out." Even though he was surprised, he wasn't afraid, so he didn't do anything. Fizz! Fizz! Crimson sword light flashed in the murky sky, as if it were trying to invade this heaven and earth. The changes in the land of terror shocked the powerful experts from the Devil's Palace, the Goblin Temple, and the Red Devil School, as well as the many visitors from the Heavenly Source continent. Countless pairs of eyes were fixed on the sky above the land of terror. The white-robed ghoul's expression flickered as he jerked his head towards Mingdu. "Now that I've recovered my cultivation base, you won't be able to leave this place as you please," Mingdu said indifferently. Mingdu's tone was indifferent. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air, pulling out the soul-crossing river that was immersed in the Netherworld River. The powerful soul tool that represented the land of terror landed behind Mingdu like a dazzling river of stars. It looked as if there were thousands of souls wriggling inside the soul-crossing river. They formed a dense, profound formation that suppressed any abnormalities in the land of terror. Ding! As if a string had snapped, Yu Yuan's psychic connection with the forbidden land of the fallen moons was instantly severed. The soul-refining pool could no longer sense his presence. The crimson sword light and the inky soul power that had just appeared in the murky sky hovered around for a few seconds, as if they didn't know where Yu Yuan was. Then, they quietly faded away. "Now that I've become a Ghoul King, it's filled with Yin energy. It's a supreme existence in the land of terror." Mingdu grinned and said in a domineering manner, "White Bone, Luo Yu, if you're willing to swear loyalty to me, I can spare your lives. Qianjie has already made a deal with me. She swore loyalty to me after I became a ghoul god. If the two of you are as tactful as she is, we'll combine our forces, and the land of terror will usher in an unprecedented golden age. When I become a ghoul god, we'll take advantage of this opportunity to truly establish ourselves in Howren. The three great sects, the Devil's Palace, and the Goblin Temple will always ask for our opinion." Mingdu didn't hold back at all as he revealed his ambitions. He wanted to unite the land of terror once more and announce his existence to the entire Howren with the power of a ghoul god. He wanted the land of terror to become an independent force that could stand on equal footing with the three great sects, the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple. For tens of millions of years, this unique land had been a paradise for all kinds of soul cultivators. Earth devils, demon souls from the outside world, and Yin gods of the human race could all come here and do whatever they wanted. Even though the land of terror was independent and hadn't truly been taken over by the five great sects, that was because of its unique environment. That was because the great cultivators of the human race and demon race could only come here with their Yin god. Otherwise, their combat strength would be greatly reduced. However, in the eyes of the great sects outside, the ghouls of the land of terror were just turtles that only dared to hide in their homes and not come out. Once they came out, they would lose their advantage, and the ghouls of the land of terror could only become lambs. Mingdu, from the moment he was born, had made a great promise. He swore to change everything. Now, he finally had such a chance. Chapter 828. As a Ghost King, Mingdu had such great ambitions. He had the heart to benefit all living beings in the land of terror. This was the reason why he could gain the support of thousands of ghosts. This was different from the other ghost kings. Before him, there were other ghost kings of the same generation who only thought about themselves. Mingdu's great ambition was to make the Land of Terror as transcendent as the three high sects, Devil's Palace and Goblin Temple, or even more. This was why he could unify the Land of Terror and gain the recognition of the other ghost kings of the same generation. Some of the 8 ancient ghosts were even older than him. The reason why they followed him was because they knew of his ambition and recognized his ability. This included the current generation's white-robed ghost. He thought of ways to escape the Land of Terror, and used the Blood Spirit altar to break through the boundary wall of the Milky Way and reach the outer Milky Way to help him summon the 8 ghosts. They were also subdued by Mingdu. You are wrong. Bai Gu's eyes were cold. At this time, many ghosts and souls gathered and scattered around the 8 ancient ghosts. They wanted to witness the change of power in the Land of Terror. When the newly arrived ghosts heard Mingdu's words, their souls surged with excitement. Even the strong ghosts that had nothing to do with Dark Nether Capital and only heard rumors about it were subdued by Dark Nether Capital when Dark Nether Capital revealed its true intention to establish the prestige of the Land of Terror and make the Land of Terror stand shoulder to shoulder with the 5 great forces. Without using a single soldier or executing any divine arts or secret arts, their hearts started to lean towards Mingdu. They leaned towards Mingdu, killing Bai Gu and Luoyu. Then, with an invincible attitude, he would reach the ghost god realm. Then, he would lead them and let the ghosts and souls of the Land of Terror break free from the shackles of this side. They would march through the 3 continents and appear between the empires. Many of the specters that had been born in the Land of Terror hadn't left this place in their entire lives. They also wanted to see the scenery of the outside world. However, they heard that the cultivators outside hunted them for fun and refined them to improve their cultivation. Because of fear and their own weakness, they did not dare to go out. Mingdu's words allowed them to see hope. They saw a future that was different from the past. I'm wrong. Mingdu grinned fiendishly. I'm fighting for a wider living space for the creatures in the Land of Terror. May I ask, what did I do wrong? If you are right, you should have ascended to godhood 1,000 years ago in the outside world. Bai Gu's tone was indifferent. This world is the opposite of the outside world. The outside world was in constant turmoil, and there were countless undead. Only a place of fear would bring about a flourishing age. For example, right now, all the great empires are fighting, and many sects are fighting fiercely with the otherworldly demons. Because of this, the Land of Terror has soil that can create ghosts and deities, and it is possible for a supreme leader to be born. But if it's your Mingdu and you use your ambition to make the ghosts in your territory leave the Land of Fear and start to wander in the outside world, it will only add to the chaos. Since ancient times, the Land of Terror has only been a shelter for spirits. This is the meaning of its existence. You've broken the rules and allowed ghosts to run rampant in the world. You'll only bring disaster to the Land of Terror. It was rare for White Bones to speak so much. In a sense, it represented the normal thoughts and will of the source of the Yin vein, while Mingdu represented the chaotic and twisted side. Just like the good and evil sides of human nature. That's its view. You were convinced by it. I don't agree with some of its views. Mingdu's face was cold as he said, I don't know who made the rules. Why can the creatures of flesh and blood from the outside world enter the Land of Terror whenever they want? Why do they have to govern us? I want to use a different method. We, the ghosts of the Land of Terror, will set the new rules. When I become a ghost god, we can go out and come in whenever we want. Roar, roar. Oh, 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 oh. More and more ghosts and spirits gathered. Because of Mingdu's words, they were instantly ignited with passion. The screaming ghosts looked at Mingdu with fanatical worship. They instantly turned into Mingdu's subordinates and started to criticize White Bones and Luoyu with him. White Bones took a look and knew that all the ghosts and spirits present had been bewitched by Mingdu and had lost their minds. Mingdu had such a unique charm from the moment he was born. White Bones had to admit defeat. White Bones started to fall silent. He couldn't be bothered to say more. He thought to himself that when Mingdu became a ghost god and led the ghosts outside, they would be suppressed by the 5 supreme powers or slaughtered mercilessly by the Shunhun sect. Only then would these ghosts come to their senses. "If you don't want to listen, don't blame me for being impolite," Mingdu shouted. With a thought, a dazzling shell flew out from the wide netherworld river under his feet. The palm-sized shell shone with divine light. The purest netherworld river water flowed out from the cracks of the shell. It flowed down like mercury and shone with a light that made one's soul tremble. The moment the shell was pulled out by Mingdu, the sword soul in Yu Yuan's arm was suddenly startled. He instantly felt the heat in his arm and sensed the sword soul's rapid awakening. He was stunned for a moment and hurriedly communicated with it. In the current situation, he could no longer rely on Bai Gu or Luoyu. After his connection with the soul-transforming pool was severed, he was at his wits' end. Mingdu summoned the shell that contained his body because he wanted to fuse his soul with his body. With the soul-crossing river in his hand, he killed White Bones and Luoyu one by one in front of the ghosts and spirits with his peak strength. It was to make an example out of them and also to display Mingdu's invincible strength. He wanted to subdue all the ghosts and secure victory. Chi. The sword soul woke up. Traces of crimson sword light flowed continuously in his arm. Mingdu suddenly felt it. He looked coldly at Yu Yuan and said, "It's too late." The crimson sword light in the soul-crossing river, that looked like a galaxy, also reacted to the awakening of the sword soul. At this moment, Chao Jiazi laughed lightly and said, "Lord Mingdu, you don't have to worry. His sword won't be a threat to you." What he meant was that he would be in charge of dealing with Yu Yuan, and there was no need for Mingdu to worry. "My soul and body have fused. Even if he draws out the remaining sword energy, it's useless." Mingdu snorted. "I will dissolve those sword lights." Mingdu, who didn't return to his body and only had his soul, was still afraid that Yu Yuan's sword would devour the remaining sword lights of the moon, severing realm cultivators. After fusing his soul and body, it was time for him to refine those sword lights. In this way, he was no longer afraid of Yu Yuan's sword. Strange, Yu Yuan ignored Mingdu and Chao Jiazi's words. His attention was focused on communicating with the sword soul. He captured an unbelievable fact from the sword soul's ripples of consciousness. There was an evil spirit inside the shell. It was the evil spirit of the fallen moon Forbidden Land. And it was one of the top evil spirits. Back then, the earth demon White Ghost was only ranked 10th. The powerful heavenly demon Green Nightmare and the heaven-shaking Emperor were only ranked 6th or 7th. The leader of the evil spirits was the one in the giant bronze coffin. He was known as the Sinner of the Howren Heaven and Earth. His shocking strength was the strongest that Yu Yuan had seen so far. What kind of existence was the top 3 evil spirits in the shell? Crack. Due to Mingdu's power, the shell suddenly cracked open. A body of flesh and blood that looked exactly like Mingdu's body was revealed. The flesh and blood of this body were mixed with countless sunflower essence, which allowed him to ignore the harsh, cold wind blowing at him. This explosive blood energy was like a volcanic eruption. The first thing that appeared in Yu Yuan's mind was the ancient desolate sex Zhongli Dashan. As he felt this familiar fluctuation, his complexion changed. Mingdu's body was refined from the corpse of a Freedom Realm cultivator from the ancient Baron sect, Bai Gu said with a sigh. After fusing his soul and body, Mingdu's battle strength had reached its peak. Even if he wasn't injured, he would only have a 30 to 70 chance of winning against him at his peak. He had a 30 to 70 chance of winning against Mingdu. Now, he didn't even have a 10% chance of winning. Whoosh! Mingdu's soul roared and burrowed into Qin Lai's body. Everyone's eyes followed his soul and watched as he fused his soul and body. They all thought that once his soul entered the shell, the chaos in the land of despair would end. Then, a strange scene that made everyone's jaws drop happened. Mingdu's body, which was lying flat in the shell, suddenly sat up straight. Then, he slowly stood up from the shell. The moment he stood up, the palm-sized shell suddenly expanded 100 times. How could a body without a soul stand up on its own? Everyone and ghosts were dumbfounded. They didn't know what to do. Mingdu's soul stopped at the last moment. He looked at himself, who stood up from the shell, with an extremely ugly expression. He asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? We haven't seen each other for 1,000 years. Have you forgotten who I am?" Mingdu's body spoke in the human language. His voice was indescribably ancient. "Yu Ling, I've met you a few times in the Fallen Moon Forbidden Land. It's just that you've always had doubts and never confirmed them." Tian Tsang, Mingdu, Bai Gu, and Chao Jiazi exclaimed in unison. Chapter 829. Mingdu's body, which had risen from the shell, was brimming with a tremendous power that even made the life altar in Yu Yuan's blood aura restless. It was a body refined from the corpse of an ancient barren sex freedom realm body refinement cultivator. Bodies of flesh and blood were not tolerated by the land of terror. However, if they contained a large amount of Yin sunflower essence, they could break the rules and fly freely. Yu Ling's body had been like this in the past. Chao Jiazi and Yu Yuan were the same now. They had never imagined that the body Mingdu had been waiting for would be in the same situation, and that it had gone even further. What was even more unexpected was that the body Mingdu had been waiting for a long time already had a soul in it, Ghoul King Tianzong. When Mingdu, Bai Gu, and Chao Jiazi called out this name in unison, all the specters were confused. Ghoul King Tianzong was one of the Ghoul Kings who rarely appeared in the land of terror. He was so mysterious that it was easy to overlook him. However, when the specters thought about it, they realized that Tianzong had been a Ghoul King since they entered the land of terror and started cultivating the Ghost Tao. There was no exception. Even the 8 subordinates of the Nether Capital, who claimed to have lived a long time, realized that Tianzong had already been a Ghost King when they were alive. However, even they easily overlooked Tianzong's existence. It was as if Tianzong had done it on purpose. It was as if Tianzong had a secret art of concealment that could affect their souls and minds. Yu Qian, Heavenly Devil Yu Qian, the third most powerful evil devil in the Forbidden Lands. Bai Gu was the first to realize the truth. His green eyes shone with the light of astonishment. "You're Yu Qian, Tianzong? You escaped the imprisonment of the sealing heaven soul dispersing formation in the form of an heavenly devil's soul, secretly entered the land of terror, and became a Ghoul King through the Ghost Tao?" Yu Qian, an heavenly devil from another realm who cultivated the Ghost Tao and became a Ghoul King. Ghoul King Tianzong is an heavenly devil from another realm? The specters were in an uproar. Old demons' schemes were sinister, treacherous, and vicious. Sky fiends were good at transformation and possession. If Tianzong was indeed Yu Qian, the heavenly devil who ranked third in the forbidden land of the fallen moons, and as Bai Gu had said, and he had broken free from the restrictions of the grand spell formation, then entering the land of terror would be the best way out if he didn't want to be killed by the 5 supreme forces. Yu Qian, in his soul form, had cultivated the Ghost Tao with the help of the Yin energy in the land of despair. In the land of despair, he had reached the Ghost King realm, and even the 5 supreme forces couldn't do anything to him. The Ghost King's secret divine ability allowed him to instantly enter the corresponding underworld river if he sensed something amiss while wandering outside. Even after leaving the land of terror and entering the forbidden land of the falling moons, he could still assume the form of heavenly devil Yu Qian and strengthen himself with his evil soul. Yu Qian's transformation into Tianzong Ghoul King had brought him too many benefits. Tianzong, you dare to possess my body? Mingdu was furious. Only by merging his soul and body as one would he be able to recover his peak strength. Otherwise, as a mere ghost king, he would not be invincible if he only used his soul to fight. His body could be seen as the soul's armor, which would allow his soul to take the initiative to withstand many attacks. This was why Yu Yuan and Chao Jiazi's fleshly bodies were much stronger than those of ordinary nether gods when they entered the land of despair. Luo Yu had refined the Yin mountain into her body. The reason why Bai Gu had found such a body and refined it into its body was to increase its strength, so that its soul wouldn't have to bear the brunt of any terrifying attacks. Without a body, it would be at a great disadvantage in battle. Even powerful heavenly devils would refine their bodies when they reached a certain height, let alone a ghoul king in the land of despair. The body that Mingdu had been waiting for had finally returned, but it turned out to be Tianzong Ghoul King. How could he accept this? Since Tianzong was the heavenly devil Yu Qian, who was best at concealing himself, of course he wouldn't be able to tell that Tianzong was in his body. Therefore, he had used his nether river to replenish his drifting body with Yin energy. Possession was a divine ability that heavenly devils had mastered since they were young. It wasn't difficult for Tianzong to possess his body with the heavenly devil's secret arts. The difficult part was how Tianzong had found his body and taken it from those Asuras. The Asuras he was on good terms with were extremely powerful, and they had the tacit approval and secret escort of the three greater sections. How could Tianzong have killed those Asuras? Surprised, aren't you? After successfully possessing his body, Tianzong stepped out of the shell and put it into his palm. He smiled at Mingdu and said, "You can only do whatever you want when your soul and body become one. By possessing your body, I've solved the problem fundamentally. I've become stronger, but you'll never recover your peak strength." "How did you do it?" Mingdu gradually calmed down. "It's them?" Tianzong nodded. "Them?" Chao Jiazi, Bai Gu, and Luo Yu, the 8 ancient ghouls, immediately realized who Mingdu was referring to. Since it was them, of course everything was possible. After all, they had gradually made the 5 great sects feel great pressure in the Starry River and Howran, forcing the local forces in Howran to be restrained. Therefore, it wasn't difficult for them to secretly help Tianzong kill the Asuras who had escorted the shell. Yu Yuan grinned and let out a strange laugh. "Interesting, very interesting. I can't believe this is the result after waiting for so long." He was laughing so hard that he was convulsing with laughter. Upon hearing his laughter, Tianzong, who had possessed Mingdu's body, turned around and bowed slightly to him. "That man asked me to send his regards to you." Yu Yuan went blank. "Who?" "The man in the bronze coffin. Do you remember that he asked you to stay alive before he left?" Tianzong said with a smile. A shudder ran through Yu Yuan. "You were in the forbidden land of the fallen moons at that time?" "I was watching from the dark," Tianzong admitted without hesitation. "I'm special because I've long since broken free of the spell formation's restraints, and I'm good at hiding. No one can find me unless I show myself. I'm different from Green Nightmare. I've been in contact with that man since a long time ago, and I've been serving him for a long time." The man he was talking about was none other than the great devil known as Howran Sin, who had been an overlord of the Shunhun sect's previous era. All of a sudden, Yu Yuan thought of the origin of the Yin Meridians, and his speculation about him. He had lived 3 lives. Back when that man had taken Green Nightmare, Grand Emperor Heaven Shaking, and the White Ghost into custody, he had sent a wisp of his soul awareness into the depths of the Starry River. It was as if he had recognized something in the depths of his soul, but hadn't done anything. "Stay alive. Perhaps you'll get what you want in this life. We'll meet again one day." When the giant bronze coffin had risen into the heavens, the man had left him such a message, which had led him to believe that he was talking about the life of the drug god Hanch. Only now did he realize that the man he had seen wasn't the drug god Hanch. Hanch, who hadn't embarked on the path of cultivation, had lived less than 100 years, and had only immersed himself in the Tao of medicine refinement, shouldn't be qualified enough for that man to think so highly of him, right? You and you, all of you. Tian Tsang slowly rose into the air and pointed at the white-robed spectre, the 8 ancient specters, and the numerous specters that had just gone crazy over Mingdu's words. I don't care about your lives at all. I know you won't agree to let me, a foreign heavenly devil, advance into a ghostly god and lead you. I know it won't agree either. Tian Tsang looked down at the ground under his feet. He was talking about the origin of the Yin Meridians. Mingdu was a spectre born in the land of despair. He carried part of the will of the origin of the Yin Meridians, and was a native spirit. Bai Gu in this life and Yu Ling in his previous life were both outsiders. They were specters from outside who had entered and cultivated into ghost kings. However, Yu Ling and Bai Gu's roots were still in Howren. The specters of Howren, the cycle of life, death, and reincarnation was still controlled by the origin of the Yin Meridians. Therefore, the origin of the Yin Meridians recognized Bai Gu and didn't think there was a problem with letting Bai Gu become a ghostly god. The problem was Tian Tsang. Tian Tsang was a foreign heavenly devil. Although he had turned to cultivate the ghost Tao and become a ghost king according to the rules of the land of despair, heavenly devils were specters outside of Howren. No one knew what would happen if he became a ghostly god. The origin of the Yin Meridians had chosen Bai Gu because it knew of Tian Tsang's background. All the specters in Chao Jiazi here couldn't accept letting a foreign heavenly devil like Tian Tsang control the land of despair in the future. Chapter 830. Who would have thought that Tian Tsang would be able to take Mingdu's body with the help of the Shenhun sect? Chao Jiazi in Xuantianzong thought to himself with a headache, holding the Heaven Palace seal in one hand and the Blue Devil's Tear in the other. His eyes flickered as he sized up Tian Tsang, Mingdu, and his subordinates, the Dark Ghosts. His frown grew deeper. He knew many secrets about the Forbidden Land of the Falling Moons. The top 10 crooks in the Forbidden Land were every bit as powerful as the Ghoul Kings in the Land of Despair. The top 3 crooks were even more heaven-shaking and earth-shattering. They were existences that even the 5 paramount forces had to be on guard against at all times. Heavenly Devil Yu Qian was such a fierce, crooked devil. It was said that he was one of the first heavenly devils to enter Howren. He had already begun to wreak havoc in this part of the Starry River before the humans had become the overlords of this world. Later, he had been seriously injured by the joint forces of the dragons and the grand demons, and had quietly fled to the depths of the Starry River. Every few years, he would return to Howren. Later, the humans had mastered cultivation techniques and risen to prominence. They had replaced the dragons and the demons, and become the most powerful race in Howren. At that time, many remarkable figures had been born in the Shenhun sect one after another. The heavenly devil Yu Qian, a magnate of the Shenhun sect, had secretly entered Howren again. It was said that he had been the one who had set up the trap and captured him in one fell swoop. Yu Qian had been imprisoned in the Shenhun sect's territory, which was now the Forbidden Land of the Falling Moons. No one had expected that after countless years, he would pledge his loyalty to him. After the Shenhun sect was destroyed and imprisoned, he had broken free from the heaven-sealing soul-vanquishing formation and started to practice the ghost Tao in the Land of Despair. That was how he had become Tian Tsang. 5,000 years of Ghoul King history was indeed conservative. Chao Jiazi guessed that Tian Tsang had been a Ghoul King for at least 7,000 or 8,000 years. No one knew how strong Tian Tsang was, especially now that he had possessed Mingdu's body. Take this. It should be of some help to you. Tian Tsang held the shell in his hand for a while, as if he was trying to erase the marks of the Azura race. Then, he flicked his finger. All of a sudden, the glowing shell flew towards Yu Yuan. Yu Yuan was stunned for a moment before he reached out and grabbed it. Immediately, a thick flow of refined blood energy flowed into his little blood world and merged into the life altar. His physical body recovered after a few breaths of time. Aside from that, wisps of divine light, which seemed to be the refined power of the starry river, actually fused into his golden hall microcosm without a hitch. His chi, blood, and spiritual energy were instantly filled to the brim, causing him to feel bloated and painful as if he had eaten too much. At the bottom of the shell, there was a dazzling light. Yu Yuan looked down and thought of something. She immediately looked at Luo Yu. On the other side, Luo Yu was already staring at him. To be exact, she was staring at the shell in his hand. The light at the bottom of the shell had been gathered from the starry river. It was even more miraculous and profound than the light Zuan had given her in the early years. It would be very helpful for her to repair her flower basket. What's this? Yu Yuan scratched his head and looked at Tian Song in embarrassment. She and I don't have any conflict of great Tao. You can do whatever you want with the shell. I don't mind. Tian Song would only restrain himself in front of him and be very humble. The divine light it contains is of no benefit to Yuling. Just give it to her. Luo Yu's eyes lit up. After hearing this, Yu Yuan no longer hesitated and tossed the shell in his hand to Luo Yu. Luo Yu caught it with her tattered flower basket and arranged the shell carefully on the blue ground. Then, she smiled brightly. I'm not a fence-sitter. I'll only stand with my junior martial brother. No matter who you help, you'll deal with these things. Tian Song's gaze fell on the white-robed ghost and the 8 ancient ghosts led by the Qianxiang ghost. So, leave Mingdu to me. As soon as he finished speaking, Tian Song suddenly charged toward the brilliant starry river formed by the soul-crossing river behind Mingdu Ghost King. He didn't attack Mingdu's soul body. Mingdu, I'll fight you in the soul-crossing river you control. As soon as Tian Song fell into the brilliant river of stars, he shook his body in Mingdu's body and transformed into a space behemoth named Chaos Kuan. He opened his enormous mouth that looked like a black hole and devoured the river of stars made of souls crossing river. Astral beasts could condense and swallow stars. This was one of their core divine abilities. The starry river behind Mingdu was fake. The Chaos Kuan Tian Song transformed into was also fake, but in terms of form, it did faintly suppress the soul-crossing river. He chose to attack the soul-crossing river and fight Mingdu inside. How smart of him! Luo Yu refined the shell at the bottom of the basket and said softly to Yu Yuan, Mingdu can use the soul-crossing river to move as he pleases when attacking Mingdu's soul. He's as slippery as a loach. As long as Mingdu refuses to fight him head-on, Tian Song will be in trouble. Have I been forgotten? Chao Jiaza rubbed his nose and said helplessly, I've been ordered to come to the land of terror and help Mingdu climb the ghost god throne. Since I'm here, I have to do something. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Senior Tian Song, if I may be so bold, let me see if you can catch this blood spirit altar. The blue devil's tear soared into the sky. It turned into the most dazzling blue star and sank into the brilliant starry river. Then, it changed inside the starry river and condensed into an icy blue vortex. Within the vortex, the spirit altar and the blood altar were translucent and sparkling. They shone with brilliant light and brilliant colors. The spirit altar and the blood altar, including the turbid demon fetus, suddenly split into 3. The spirit altar was at the Chaos Kuan's head, the blood altar was suppressing its body, and the turbid demon fetus turned into a blue shadow leaf and attached itself to the Chaos Kuan's abdomen. Seeing this, Yu Yuan had a strange expression. He couldn't help but think of the scene in the starry ash sea region where He Sun, the white-robed ghost, and the crane-riding man led by De Shao used the blood spirit altar to suppress the Chaos Kuan. They were exactly the same, so similar. However, the blood spirit altar didn't change. The one that looked exactly the same as the Chaos Kuan was Tian Tsang's transformation from that strange body. Tian Tsang, who wanted to fight Mingdu, grinned and turned into a ferocious-looking monster with a blue face and sharp fangs. He was covered in blue scales and looked at the ferocious and brutal monster form. This monster was 300 meters tall. Its hands were covered in spikes, and it grabbed the translucent blood spirit altar. Then, with a casual slap, it pushed the blood spirit altar under its feet. As for the turbid demon fetus, it was stuffed into its chest as if it was a piece of armor. Chao Jiaza's expression changed drastically. He was shocked to find that his mental connection with the blood spirit altar was ruthlessly cut off in an instant. Go! Thousands of ancient characters flew out of the forehead of the Nether King with a blue face and sharp fangs. They landed on the blood spirit altar and the blood spirit altar, as if they had turned into thousands of little monsters. Merge again. As Tian Tsang chuckled, the two halves of the blood spirit altar merged together. Tian Tsang landed lightly on the translucent blue altar. His brutal and ferocious body and the blue altar became incomparably harmonious. Tian Tsang, you! At this moment Mingdu couldn't be more shocked. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He wasn't the only one. White Bones, Luo Yu, and the Dark Ghosts all had thoughtful looks on their faces. Tian Tsang is the heavenly devil Yu Qian, and Yu Qian is a member of the Blue Devil race. The Cauldron Soul, Yui, saw the truth and floated away from Yu Yuan's Zigong Meridian. The blood spirit altar that Chao Jiaza controls originally belonged to the Blue Devils. It's very likely that the blood spirit altar originally belonged to Tian Tsang, but was sealed in the starry ash sea. Shocked, Yu Yuan nodded slightly. This should be the truth. The blood spirit altar was a great weapon of war for the heavenly devils. It was built by gathering the strength of an entire race. This altar belonged to the Blue Devils. Yu Qian was a heavenly devil of the Blue Devils. This blood spirit altar probably belonged to him. It was very likely that he had used it to enter and exit the Howran realms when he had conquered the Outer Realms. Today, it could only be said that it had returned to its rightful owner. P.S. Today's chapter. Ahem, sorry, I'm not feeling well. Bow bow. Chapter 831. I can't believe you're thinking of using my weapon against me. Tianzong pointed at Chao Jiaza and laughed brazenly. Do you know why I've never had a suitable soul tool even though I've been a ghoul king in the Land of Terror for so many years? The Nether capital had the soul-crossing river, the frigid depths had the icy tombstone made from the 10,000-year-old frost soul frost crystal, the black cane had the towering scepter, and Luo Yu had her flower basket. However, they had never seen Tianzong use any of his most powerful weapons. Outside the brilliant river of stars, Chao Jiaza, who had always been calm and steady, wore a gloomy expression and remained silent. That's because my weapon has always been at the bottom of the sea of stardust under the combined might of the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple. Tianzong laughed and added, so you should know that the only reason I can transform into that lifelike star behemoth is because I've seen him before. And more than once. The Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple had imprisoned the Blue Devil's blood spirit altar at the bottom of the Sea of Stardust. Tianzong had gone to the bottom of the Sea of Stardust after escaping from the forbidden land of the fallen moons. Unfortunately, he knew that if he dared to approach the blood spirit altar, he would immediately alert the guards of the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple. At that time, the guardians of the Sea of Stardust hadn't been Hei Sun or Grey Crow. Instead, they had been guarded by Freedom Realm Devil cultivators and 9th-level demons. Even when he was still Heavenly Devil Yu Qian, he wasn't confident that he could contend against the two guardians of the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple. He also knew that if he exposed his whereabouts, the experts of the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple would swarm to him. At that time, the situation in Howren had been stable, and the 5 paramount forces could send nascent divinity experts over at any time. He had been smart. He had only taken a glance at the blood spirit altar from afar before leaving for the Land of Terror. Then, he had switched from a heavenly devil to a ghostly cultivator and become Tianzong. As Ghoul King Tianzong, he concealed his heavenly devil aura and visited the starry Ash Sea region several times in his ghostly form. At this moment, his aura had undergone a major change. His concealment secret techniques and divine abilities had improved greatly. He had not disturbed the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple when he had snuck into the bottom of the starry Ash Sea region. He had wandered around the blood spirit altar that belonged to him for a long time. He had even secretly met the Chaos Kuan and had an in-depth conversation with it. However, he still understood that he could watch, but if he dared to act rashly, he would still alarm the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple. As a Ghost King, it was impossible for him to successfully take away the blood spirit altar, so he calmly endured it. Until, when the person in the bronze coffin escaped, he convinced the members of the Shunhun sect, who were in a state of disunity, to gather a force that was not inferior to any of the supreme sections. He plotted for a long time and confirmed that returning to the world of Howren was a good opportunity. He also reached a secret agreement with the extraterrestrial devils and the alien race. This matter was finally done. When He Sun became a young god and soared through the galaxy, he was persuaded by the experts of the Shunhun sect and was willing to abandon the Devil's Palace to help the blood spirit altar step out of the void, which also led to the escape of the Chaos Kuan. From the moment the Shunhun sect decided to return, they realized that countless souls would die in the world of Howren. They knew that the Land of Fear would have the soil to give birth to ghosts and gods. As a follower of the person in the bronze coffin, he was naturally the first choice. Under layers of arrangements, he obtained everything in front of him. Yu Yuan said softly, "Lord Tian-tsang, I don't dare. Just call me Tian-tsang or Yuqian." In the brilliant galaxy formed by the soul-crossing river, Tian-tsang, who was in charge of the blood spirit altar, heard his voice, and the wild laughter on his face suddenly disappeared. His expression became much more serious and sincere. "What doubts do you have?" He did not know why the person in the bronze coffin thought so highly of Yu Yuan. However, he respected that person very much. Besides, that person had been freed from his restraints because Yu Yuan had entered the forbidden land of the falling moons. His blood spirit altar had also returned to the Starry River because of Yu Yuan by a freak combination of factors. Then, under the careful planning of the person in the Shunhun sect, he had entered the Land of Fear and accepted it as a matter of course. For various reasons, he was grateful to Yu Yuan. Adding that person's orders, he didn't dare to let his guard down. "Let's call it Tian-tsang then." Yu Yuan didn't stick to the details. Curious, he asked, "Did the sect master of the Xuantianzong sect get these blood spirit altars?" Tian-tsang, who had a blue face and sharp fangs, grinned and nodded. "That's right. It's all part of that person's plan." After receiving the answer, Yu Yuan said, "Got it." He instantly realized that the white-robed ghost, who thought that he was smart, had received the sect master of Profound Heaven sect's acknowledgement. He had used him as a link to connect the 3 high sects and the Dark Nether capital. He had helped the Dark Nether capital return their bodies, found the blood spirit altar, and refined it by Chao Jiazi. Then, he had instructed Chao Jiazi to take the blood spirit altar to the Land of Fear and help the Dark Star capital become a ghost god. All of this had probably been part of the Shunhun sect's plan. The Shunhun sect had calculated everything and set everything up in secret. The result was that the Dark Star capital's body, which had been waiting for a long time, had been intercepted by Tian-tsang. The blood spirit altar, which Chao Jiazi thought could turn the situation around, had also fallen into his hands. He had thought that he was there to help the Dark Star capital. Little did he know that in the eyes of the Shenhun sect, he was just a delivery man. By sending the blood spirit altar to the land of fear and waiting for Tian Tsang to come, Chao Jiazi would have made the best use of it. The Shenhun sect. Yu Yuan suddenly felt a sense of longing as he mulled over the name of this sect. He didn't know about other places, but judging from what had happened in the land of fear, the Shenhun sect was clearly superior to the three great sects, the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple in this area. The Shenhun sect, which had attacked the Blue Phoenix Empire, had also won the battle, and Chen Liangquan had ascended to the throne. Meanwhile, the Shenhun sect had taken control of the forbidden land of the fallen moons, which had become a place that even the five great sects didn't dare to explore. No wonder they once suppressed the five great sects so much that they couldn't even breathe. Luo Yu sighed with mixed emotions. They didn't make a move, but as soon as they did, they turned the situation around and secured victory. "Let me borrow your scabbard, little brother Yu." Standing on the sparkling and translucent blood spirit altar, Tian Tsang extended his hand towards Yu Yuan. "I'll take your scabbard and collect the residual sword light and sword intent in this soul-crossing river for you to use later. Now that I'm back, you don't have to do anything to deal with the Nether capital." "Okay." Without thinking, Yu Yuan tossed the scabbard out of his hand. No one stopped him. The tall Nether capital watched the scabbard fall into the sea of stars with a grim face. The sword light and sword intent left by the moon's severing realm cultivator had been corroding him day and night for 1,000 years. He would only be able to refine them after his soul and body had become one. He didn't have that ability now. Since Tian Tsang wanted to collect the sword light and sword intent into the scabbard of the moon's severing realm cultivator, why wouldn't he do it? "It'll be easy as long as I have the scabbard." Tian Tsang, who had transformed into a ferocious devil with a blue face and sharp fangs, held the scabbard with a monstrous hand that was covered in thorns. He turned the scabbard's mouth downward and exclaimed, "Come!" Swish, swish, swish. The crimson sword light, which was as fine as a strand of hair, flew into the scabbard and disappeared. "It's done." In just a few seconds, Tian Tsang flung the scabbard out of the sea of stars again. "Go and kill that Qianxiang ghost, brother Yu. I know you're capable of that." With a chuckle, Tian Tsang said to Luo Yu, "I don't need you to help me. Just take care of him." Tian Tsang, who was still in the middle of the soul-crossing river, slapped his back, and countless soul shadows exploded in the sea of stars. He stomped his foot lightly, and a stream of soul power poured into the blood spirit altar like a waterfall, crushing Chao Jiazi's remaining wisps of soul awareness. "Pooh!" Chao Jiazi coughed up blood. Wrapped in a heaven palace seal, he seemed to be wearing a suit of armor wreathed in mighty divine light as he hastily retreated into the distance. Without even looking at him, Tian Tsang threw the heart-protecting armor in his chest, which was made of the turbid demon fetus, to the white-robed ghost. In the blink of an eye, a blue shadow enveloped the white-robed ghoul. This ghoul, who used to be ranked higher than Bai Gu among the titled ghouls, was instantly corroded by a power that was dozens of times stronger than that of Yu Yuan, Bai Gu, and Luo Yu. In a very short time, the white-robed ghost melted into the turbid demon fetus, leaving not even a shred of consciousness behind. In Tian Tsang's hands, the blood spirit altar was many times more powerful than when it had been under Chao Jiazi's control. This was the true face of the great weapon that had allowed the heavenly devils to run rampant in the starry river and struck fear into the hearts of many outsiders. This was the power it should have. Tian Tsang let out a cold harumph. "Get the hell away from me if you don't want to die." The blue shadow that the turbid demon fetus had turned into immediately spread to the place where the specters were gathered. Any specter that was caught in it, no matter what level they were at, was instantly killed. Tens of thousands of ghosts screeched as they began to flee. Chapter 832. The blue shadow floated in the air of the land of terror, filling the air with death. All of the ghosts and souls fled for their lives because of Tiansong's word. Those who didn't leave in time were drowned by the blue shadow. Like flies, they died in the depths of the turbid demon fetus, unable to cause even the slightest ripple. Even the white-robed titled ghouls, who ranked at the top, couldn't resist at all, let alone them. What they were afraid of was that Tiansong wasn't a ghost born in the land of terror, nor was he a being of Howren. He was a cruel and cold-blooded foreign heavenly devil. When it came to the heavenly demons of the outer realms, their reverence was ingrained in their bones, and they trembled in fear. In the depths of the brilliant river of stars transformed from the soul-crossing river, Tiansong, who had a blue face and sharp fangs, grinned viciously. It had been a long, long time since he had been so happy. As the last surviving demon god of the Blue Devils, he had witnessed the decline of his race with his own eyes. He had snuck into Howren many times, and seen how the humans of this realm had risen at an unimaginable speed. They had replaced the demons and dragons and become the rulers of this realm, and even the entire universe. In the end, he had been subdued by the being in the giant bronze coffin. Unfortunately, times had changed too quickly. Even the Shunhun sect had been banished from Howren by the 5 supreme forces, and he had been imprisoned in the forbidden land of fallen moons. Countless years had passed in the blink of an eye. Finally, he could hold his head high and fulfill his ambitions. How could he not be excited? When he was still a heavenly devil, he had cultivated to the level of a demon god. A heavenly devil's demon god was equivalent to a human's freedom realm expert and a level 9 demon's. His combat strength was equivalent to a ghost king's. However, in order to break free of the restrictions of the forbidden land of fallen moons, his demon god cultivation had plummeted. When he had left, he had been surrounded by the 3 great sects and forced to enter the land of terror to cultivate the ghost Tao. Who would have thought that he would find a new path for himself? After he had become a ghost king, his heavenly devil aura had been swept away. He traveled Howren as Tiansong and used his stealth technique. Surprisingly, no one could see through him. With ease, he appeared in various parts of Howren, quietly accumulating strength. He waited until the one in the bronze coffin was born. He waited until Howren was in chaos. He waited until the land of terror had the soil to create ghosts and gods. He had waited for everything. After suffering comes happiness. Who? With a thought, the blue shadow rolled over and swallowed another ancient ghost that was loyal to the Nether capital. After White Robe, another subordinate of Mingdu died tragically. Mingdu, I'm at the soul-crossing river that you control. If you want to snatch the ghost god, then come in and fight. Standing on the altar, Tiansong's eyes blazed fiercely. It's time for the laws of this world to change. Mingdu, your era has passed. Don't miss it anymore. Chao Jiaza had fled in fright, the white-robed man had been killed, and the tens of thousands of specters who had just pledged their allegiance to the Nether capital and worshipped them had fled under the threat of death. Who else could be Tiansong's opponent? Holding the scabbard in his hand, Yu Yuan felt the newly added sword light and sword intent at the bottom of the scabbard. A strange feeling arose in his heart. Was it over just like that? Tiansong's appearance and occupation of the blood spirit altar had made his and White Bone's plan and his contract with the source of the Yin veins laughable and meaningless. Tiansong alone had solved all the problems. He didn't need to do anything at all. But because of the one in the bronze coffin, Tiansong was so respectful to him. I've finally witnessed the power of the Shunhun sect. Luo Yu's soul form emerged from the flower basket. Holding the basket again, she smiled brightly at Yu Yuan and said, Do you want to do it yourself, Qianxiang ghost, or should I? Yu Yuan turned around and looked at the golden-armored ghost that was dodging in midair not far away, but didn't dare to leave. The Qianxiang ghost was dodging the blue shadow formed by the turbid demon fetus. He didn't dare to leave because the nether capital hadn't given him an order. Out of his deep-rooted fear and reverence for the nether capital, he was still afraid even though the nether capital was in a passive position. "I'll do it." Thinking back to the cruel scene of the Qianxiang ghost tearing apart Liu Chan's soul, Yu Yuan was filled with killing intent. "Let's go." The fiend demon cauldron carried him. He gripped the scabbard with one hand and charged towards the Qianxiang ghost. "Do you have a death wish, kid?" The Qianxiang ghost howled. A great rumble came from a refined mountain far away. He immediately gathered power and used a secret art. Suddenly, there was a golden drizzle that filled the sky, falling sparsely. Yu Yuan controlled the fiend demon cauldron to fall to the ground. The black screen of light created by the fiend demon cauldron crackled and sparks flew. "Not enough." Yu Yuan shook his head with a cold expression. "Is this all you've got, Qianxiang ghost? You want to hurt my soul by using a few soul blades from afar? I told you that I would kill you in the way you're used to." Whoosh! Suddenly, thousands of fiend demons formed a soul formation and surged out of the mouth of the cauldron. The blood moon, that the second fiend demon had transformed into, looked like a blood-red crescent moon at the center of the soul formation. The strange formation formed by the fiend demons enveloped the Qianxiang ghost from afar. Suddenly, an endless wave of evil mind energy exploded from within and swept over like an ocean. The soul inside the Qianxiang ghost's golden armor body twisted under the impact. This ancient ghost that was loyal to the nether capital was cleansed by billions of chaotic thoughts in an instant. Every wisp of his refined soul thought, every bit of his memory and power were filled with negative energy that did not belong to him, but could affect him and make him go crazy. At this time, the scabbard in Yu Yuan's hand was pointed at him. When the soul-breaking slash was formed, when Yu Yuan's soul energy, blood energy, and spirit energy mixed together, when the 7 acupoints in his chest and the sunflower essence responded, all the ghosts that could feel the sword intent felt as if their souls were about to shatter. Even Luo Yu, who had been looking after him and was afraid that something would happen to him, paled slightly. The sword intent alone was enough to make her feel as if her soul was about to scatter. How terrifying was this sword! Luo Yu suddenly understood why someone as strong as Bai Gu thought of Yu Yuan as an ally and wanted to rely on Yu Yuan's scabbard to use that sword art to trigger the remaining sword energy of a moon-severing realm cultivator in the soul-crossing river, to kill the nether capital. The sword intent of this sword was formed to deal with ghosts like her, Bai Gu, and the souls of the nether capital. Its destructive power surpassed that of thunder and lightning. "Your Highness! Your Highness!" The remaining ancient ghosts didn't dare to leave. They just stared at the nether capital. At this moment, the tall nether capital stared at the soul-crossing river and Tian Tsang, who was stepping on the blood spirit altar as if it were his Achilles' heel, with a grim expression. "Either you come in and fight me, or you withdraw from the war of ghosts and gods in the land of terror and obey my orders from now on." Tian Tsang locked eyes with Qin Lai. "As long as I'm in the soul-crossing river, you won't be able to teleport away. And I'll crush the soul-crossing river bit by bit and shatter the soul tool you rely on." "Shatter it?" The nether capital's expression changed. Bai Gu's expression also changed. Like the nether capital, the soul-crossing river came from the source of the Yin veins. It could be said that it was an earth-shattering soul tool formed by the will of the land of terror. Back when the nether capital had been killed by a moon-severing realm cultivator, he had held back as much as possible to avoid damaging the soul-crossing river. This was because he knew that the soul-crossing river was deeply connected to the land of terror. It couldn't be separated from the land of terror for a long time. Similarly, it couldn't be damaged. The nether capital could die and disappear, but the soul-crossing river couldn't be destroyed. "You heard it too, Bai Gu?" The nether capital in soul form suddenly looked at the silent Bai Gu. I know you're fighting for it. I also know that it won't allow the soul-crossing river to be damaged, and it won't let an otherworldly devil ride on its head. What do you want? Bai Gu said quietly. I'll borrow your bones and let my soul enter your body. I'll release my bones. If you're not afraid, then come in. What do I have to be afraid of now? Whoosh! The nether capital's soul suddenly burrowed into Bai Gu's body. The souls of the two ghoul kings who were neck and neck 1,000 years ago merged into a white skeleton today. Chapter 833. This was the most unpredictable thing in the world. No one had expected that Mingdu and Bai Gu, who had always been at loggerheads with each other and regarded each other as mortal enemies, would be forced to join forces to fight against the enemy because of Tian-tsang's return. Tian-tsang was indeed too fierce and fierce. After possessing Mingdu's body and taking back the blood spirit altar, Tian-tsang stepped into the soul-crossing river with the turbid demon fetus outside, and easily suppressed the situation. At this moment, Tian-tsang was like the commander of all the specters and evil beings in the universe. He exuded an aura of supremacy in heaven and earth. After the blood spirit altar, which was shaped like a lotus throne under his feet, merged with his soul, it helped him suppress thousands of specters in the soul-crossing river. Even the water in the soul-crossing river stopped flowing because of him. One by one, the dazzling starlight condensed from unknown materials went out. Tian-tsang, who had a blue face and sharp fangs, looked at Nether Capital with a grin. As he mocked and ridiculed them, he continued to drive the turbid devil fetus to attack the remaining ancient specters other than the Qianqiang Dark Ghost. He had left the Qianqiang Ghost to Yu Yuan to deal with, so that Yu Yuan could vent his anger on him. The other ghosts, who had been loyal to the dark nether capital for 1,000 years, were being chased by the turbid devil fetus. When the aura of death spread to the ghosts, they only dared to fly around the dark nether capital. Until Mingdu's soul flew into Bai Gu's sparkling white body after receiving its permission. Inside White Bone's eye sockets, a pair of emerald-green pupils suddenly went out like two green lanterns. 3 seconds later, one of Bai Gu's eyes reignited with emerald-green soul fire, which grew more and more turbulent and exuded a destructive aura that could wipe out the souls of all living beings. His soul seemed to be reunited in one of his eyes in an instant. A pure black flame gradually appeared in the other eye, exuding a gloomy, cold, quiet, and mysterious aura. In a short time, the flame grew stronger. With a boom, it turned into a ball of black soul fire that exuded the unique aura of Mingdu. Bai Gu and Mingdu, the two specter kings who had looked down on this land 1,000 years ago, actually shared a body of bones because of Tian-tsang's great threat. Whoosh! A streak of bright silver light broke through the air from a nearby territory and arrived in the blink of an eye. White Bones stretched out its hand and grabbed the sharp all that was refined from its mountain head. We're here. Bai Gu's voice was clearly mixed with his and Mingdu's. Two souls, two thoughts, fused into one body, fused into one voice. His small white skeletal body was like the mountains in the nether capital realm, growing taller bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, White Bone transformed into a 300 m tall skeleton giant, and its entire body flowed with a ghastly white glow. It took a step forward like a god that controlled the cycle of life and death, and it descended towards the brilliant river of stars. Tian-tsang laughed. I've been waiting for a long time. As soon as the 300-meter-tall bone giant entered the glorious starry river, it was instantly enveloped in endless silver-gray yin-chi, as if it were a natural ward. Luo Yu, who was outside, couldn't see the changes in the glorious starry river. She could only vaguely sense that two unbelievably powerful existences were officially fighting. To be exact, there were 3 of them, but one of them was a mixture of the two. Luo Yu looked elsewhere. The blue shadow transformed from the turbid demon fetus hadn't been summoned back by Tiansong. It was still attacking the remaining subordinates of the Nether capital, and devouring another ancient specter. The specter that looked like a giant lion was still laughing and shouting when it was engulfed by the blue shadow. His Highness will be able to resurrect us in the end. His Highness, who is only a ghost king, can do it. When he becomes a ghost god, he can even resurrect the ghost kings. The ancient specter was finally devoured by the blue shadow, as if it had died a heroic death. However, he wasn't afraid at all. He firmly believed that the Nether capital wouldn't lose. He believed that as long as the Nether capital lived, these loyal subordinates of his would be resurrected. They had long since experienced similar revivals from the dead. Yu Yuan. At this moment, the Qianxiang ghost let out a strange, mournful howl that was intermittent. Luo Yu jerked her head away. She saw that a crimson sword light had already left the scabbard. The thought transmitted by the sword intent was to cut off all hope and possibility of survival for all souls. For some reason, as soon as the sword intent was formed, Luo Yu suddenly felt that some kind of great Tao law in the Land of Terror was suppressed. Or rather, the great Tao law in the Land of Terror had quietly changed and endowed this sword art with endless mysteries. Wherever the sharp sword light passed, the smallest souls in the Land of Terror, invisible to the naked eye, were all killed and turned into dust. Staring at the crimson sword light, Luo Yu's soul crackled as if it was about to burst open. She turned pale with fright. Then, she could no longer hear the Qianxiang ghost screams. She could only vaguely see countless tiny golden lights being cut into even more fragments. The memories and thoughts within them were extinguished one by one. Luo Yu, who was also in the Ghost King realm, comprehended the blessing of some kind of law and understood something. The Qianxiang ghost had completely died under this sword attack. Even the Dark Capital Ghost King could not use the ability to change heaven and earth to help the Qianxiang ghost revive. That was because the sword light that cut off all life in souls was also supported by the power of the law at the source of the Yin veins. The Dark Capital Ghost King could only represent part of the will of the source of the Yin veins, not all of it. He could not reverse the souls and ghosts that had died under that sword art. Because the Qianxiang ghost had died, it could no longer enter the cycle of reincarnation, leaving no trace behind. Soul-severing, Yu Yuan, who was in the cauldron with many fiendish demons forming a soul formation behind him, held the scabbard and muttered. He was comprehending the mysteries of the soul-severing slash. He was deeply comprehending the paths of the various powers in his body and the circulation of this sword art in his meridians. Thousands of fiendish demons formed a black curtain behind him. A blood-colored crescent moon hung high in the sky. The incomparably sharp sword intent had not dissipated from his body. When the sword intent was there, a small part of the space outside the cauldron creaked, as if a spatial passage was about to open. The Qianxiang ghost, who he thought of as his first target, was completely annihilated by the soul-severing slash. The soul formation formed by the many fiendish demons behind him was indispensable. It locked onto the Qianxiang ghost from a distance, causing it to have nowhere to hide. At the same time, it was as if it had sunk into a swamp of souls, making it difficult to move. Then, it was targeted by the blood moon. After being attacked by endless evil thoughts, the Qianxiang ghost's soul was injured. The fatal blow was naturally the soul-severing slash. When this sword art was used, even the tiniest soul thought of the Qianxiang ghost was disintegrating. At that time, he still knew the truth of the source of the Yin veins and used the Yin sunflower essence to support the sword art. How could the Qianxiang ghost escape? Whoosh! It was another ancient ghost loyal to Nether Capital. It looked like a flying eagle. When the blue shadow came, it hesitated for a moment and then flew into the shadow. Yu Yuan was puzzled. He asked curiously, "Is it my imagination?" After swinging the sword and stopping, Luo Yu saw no threat and floated over. What imagination? She asked. Why do I feel like that ghost entered the turbid demon fetus controlled by Tian Song on his own accord? Yu Yuan said. You're right. He entered the turbid demon fetus on his own accord and sought death. Luo Yu saw it more clearly. He would rather die in Tian Song's hands than die under your sword. Because he also felt that if he was cut by your sword art, he would lose the slightest chance of revival. The soul-severing slash was the nemesis of all ghosts and souls. With the support of the source of the Yin veins, it was unstoppable in the land of terror. The Qianxiang ghost killed by this sword art could not be revived even if Nether Capital became a ghostly immortal. That ancient ghost seemed to have realized this. That was why he hesitated for a moment when the blue shadow came over and asked for death. He did not dare to escape, because escaping was betrayal. He knew how miserable the consequences of betraying Nether Capital were. He could not escape, and he could not defeat Tian Song. He could only die. Death was everywhere. If he could ask for a way to live in the future, why not? Not only him, but the rest of them will also seek death in the same way. Luo Yu was certain that this would be the case. What happened next confirmed her guess. The remaining 3 ancient ghosts loyal to Nether Capital seemed to be running away, but they all stealthily avoided Yu Yuan and tried to put as much distance between them as possible. Then, as luck would have it, they were chased by the blue shadow one after another and swallowed up. The white-robed man and the 8 specters who had returned from the Starry River died one after another. The Qianxiang ghost was killed by the soul-severing slash, and the rest of the ghosts were swallowed by the turbid demon fetus. All of a sudden, Yu Yuan, Luo Yu, and the dazzling river of stars formed by the soul-crossing river were the only ones left in this area. However, the river of stars was shrouded in dense Yin energy, making it impossible to see what was going on inside. Junior Marshal Brother, Luo Yu narrowed her eyes, holding the flower basket. She looked at him, wanting to say something, but stopped. Yu Yuan was surprised. What's wrong? Tian Song and Bai Gu, who are you helping? Chapter 834. Outside the Land of Terror. Many cultivators from the Tranquil Continent and the Tianyuan Continent were paying close attention to the gloomy sea of clouds and sensing the unusual movements inside. The latest news was that Yu Yuan, White Bones, and Luo Yu had all been trapped by Chao Jiaza's turbid demon fetus. Not long ago, many people had seen the shining shell break through the realm barrier and fall into the Land of Terror. The outcome has been decided. Han Qi of the Xuantianzong stroked his beard and smiled. He said to the people around him, there shouldn't be any more surprises now. He was Chao Jiaza's master. His cultivation base and talent were average. He had chosen Chao Jiaza as his disciple and brought him to the Xuantianzong. That was why his status had risen. Gathered around him were cultivators from the primal Yang sect, but most of them were people from the 7 lesser sections. Many of them were people who had wandered in the Land of Terror with their Yin souls and fallen into the towering palace. They had been driven out by Chao Jiaza. That shell? Someone from the Spirit Void sect asked softly. Han Qi nodded slightly. You're right. What's in the shell is Netherdu's body. Once this body returned and Mingdu's soul and body became one, he would be invincible. No matter how strong White Bones is or how mysterious Tian Song is, it won't matter. I knew it. With the 3 great sects plan, how could anything happen to Chao Jiaza when he came to the Land of Terror? The person from the Spirit Void sect flattered with a smile. Han Qi said proudly, now that Jiaza is here, Netherdu should have become a specter god. He had great faith in his disciple. Chao Jiaza had never disappointed him since he had brought him into the sect. He had always been his pride. With those old fogies plan, how can White Bones fight Netherdu? Gray Crow of the Goblin Temple lazily basked in the sun. Stupid Yu Yuan! How can he be with Zuan? He cursed Yu Yuan out of habit. The deeper the love, the deeper the hatred. Gray Crow knew how much influence Yu Yuan had on Yu Zhu. In the eyes of the Goblin Temple, Yu Zhu was a confirmed monster god, and he wouldn't let the Goblin Temple wait for too long. Yu Tu was a priceless treasure to the Goblin Temple. Gray Crow was worried that because Yu Yuan stood against Howren, the Goblin Temple would show up and kill Yu Yuan, which would make Yu Shu unhappy. Yu Yuan, will it be difficult for him to come out alive? On the Red Devil School's side, Yuan Lianyao was deeply worried, her face full of worry. Fang Yao said indifferently, the path he chose naturally has to bear the consequences. No one is an exception. In the distance, an Zicheng of the Blood God stared blankly at the land of terror. Everyone was waiting for new news to come out. Luo Yu stared blankly into Yu Yuan's eyes, waiting for his answer. Who are you on Tian Tsang or Bai Gu's side? Yu Yuan fell silent. Not long after he stepped into the land of terror, Bai Gu had become his staunch ally. He and Bai Gu had challenged the titled ghouls together, built up their strength, and then found Luo Yu. Bai Gu was the reason he had been able to enter the small, silver-gray world underground and communicate with the source of the Yin spirit. Bai Gu had helped him a lot. He had promised the source of the Yin spirit that he would swing his sword at the Nether capital at a critical moment and help Bai Gu ascend to the throne of the Ghost God. However, Bai Gu and the Nether capital were working together to deal with Tian Tsang. Tian Tsang, on the other hand, had taken the initiative to extend an olive branch to him as soon as he had appeared. He had expressed his goodwill and helped him recover his flesh energy and spirit power. Furthermore, he had given the resplendent shell to Luo Yu because of him. Although Tian Tsang was an otherworldly devil, he represented the Shenhun sect. Therefore, he had a close relationship with the Shenhun sect. He was in a dilemma. An idea formed in his mind, and he tried to establish a connection with the soul-refining pool in the forbidden land of the falling moons, and the strange space with the ancient black characters. Extreme wisdom will be hurt. With a thought, he discovered to his surprise that the Nether capital's isolation from this heaven and earth had been lifted. His Nether divinity instantly established a connection with the soul-refining pool. His heavenly soul also sensed the movement of the strange space. What was even more surprising was that he also sensed Yen Qiling's existence from the strange space with the ancient black characters. Extreme wisdom will be hurt. Yen Qiling seemed to be busy with something in that strange space. A wisp of soul awareness crossed the boundless space and asked Yen Qiling about it. Why had the Shenhun sect chosen Tian Tsang as an otherworldly devil who had advanced to a ghoul king? Weren't they afraid that the entire Howren would oppose them? He didn't have to wait for a long time. Yen Qiling sent a complicated message to him, entering his small world in his sea of consciousness and becoming a part of his memory. He took his time to savor the message. Moments later, his body trembled slightly as he exclaimed softly, "I didn't know this could happen." "What's wrong?" Luo Yu asked in a low voice. Chun Liangquan, a hybrid of human and outsider, has become the new monarch of the Blue Phoenix Empire. Yu Yuan pondered as he looked at the soul-crossing river. Tian Tsang used to be an otherworldly devil, but he followed the rules of the Land of Terror and practiced the Tao of Ghost. It was here that he advanced to a ghoul king. Since it gave him a nether river, didn't it acknowledge his identity as a ghoul king? It gave him a ghoul king. Why can't it? Yu Yuan asked. Are you stupid, junior martial brother? Luo Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He's an outsider. How can an outsider become the ruler of the Land of Terror? It was a deep-rooted belief that all living beings outside Howren were evil invaders. When Luo Yu had been a disciple of voodoo, she had been taught that otherworldly devils, outsider races, and star behemoths all wanted to invade Howran and destroy it. The three great sects, the Devil's Palace, the Goblin Temple, and all the other sects had to stop them from invading Howran. If any escaped, the sects had to do everything in their power to kill them or imprison them. They wouldn't allow any outsider to be free. Many of these beliefs had been formed long ago, and were hard to change. However, according to Yen Qiling, the Shunhun sect had gradually developed a new belief after drifting in the Starry River for countless years. Not all of the otherworldly devils and outsiders were evil enemies who wanted to destroy Howran. The new Shunhun sect planned to open up the eternally sealed Howran and make Howran the central world of the universe. They allowed the otherworldly devils and outsiders to come and go in Howran according to the rules set by the Shunhun sect. They also allowed them to search for spiritual materials and cultivate in specific places. However, the premise was that they had to abide by the rules of this world and not kill people in the mortal world. The Shunhun sect would provide a few places for them to communicate with other sects in Howran and trade spiritual materials, medicinal pills, and all kinds of rare metals. The reason why so many otherworldly devils and powerful outsiders were willing to follow the Shunhun sect's orders this time was because they had reached a mutual understanding. The Shunhun sect wanted to build a new world of freedom in Howran. The fact that Chun Liangquan, an outsider, had become the emperor of the most powerful empire as a hybrid was a strong signal. Tian Tsang, a heavenly devil from another realm, had switched to practicing the Tao of Ghost. Now, he had become a ghost king and had a chance to become an unprecedented ghost god, the ruler of this terrifying land. This was another strong signal. It told the otherworldly devils and outsiders that the human race had a new attitude. According to the Shunhun sect, opening up the Howran would actually make the human race more prosperous. The human race would become the most influential race in the entire Starry River. Furthermore, more mortals would be able to live and spread their branches and leaves in different realms with the help of excellent ancient starships. Thus, a new world would be created that would be even more splendid. The Shunhun sect in the old days had the same philosophy as the current five great powers. They didn't allow outsiders to set foot in Howran. Those who entered would be hunted down endlessly. They would either die or be imprisoned. The Shunhun sect in the new era had been banished to the depths of the Starry River. After many years of wandering, they had formed a new philosophy. With the support of some heavenly devils and outsiders, they had returned to Howran in an incomparably strong manner with their new philosophy, which was more acceptable than the five great powers. This was the irreconcilable contradiction and conflict between the two sides. That's probably what they're thinking. While comprehending, Yu Yuan explained the inside story to Luoyu. Spreading out her hands, she said, "Who's right and who's wrong? I don't have much knowledge, so I can't say for sure. However, judging from the attitudes of the three great sects, the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple, they probably don't approve of them." Luoyu was silent for a long time after hearing this. It seemed that she still hadn't digested it after a long time. The impact of Yu Yuan's words was simply too great for her. After a long time, she said bitterly, "I'm also at a loss. According to what you've said, opening up the Howran and allowing the otherworldly devils and outsiders to operate according to our rules doesn't seem to be a bad idea. If the Shunhun sect really has the power to restrain them, it seems to be a win-win situation for both sides." Yu Yuan nodded slightly. His experience as an Hanch in his previous life had taught him that the spiritual materials and herbs in the Howran were far from enough compared to those in the entire boundless Starry River. If the Shunhun sect's plan could really allow the Howran to accept the outsiders and conduct exchanges of resources and spiritual materials, it seemed that it would really help the human race prosper. The human race's reproductive ability was the best of all the races. Now, only those who had entered the Yang God realm could step out of the Starry River. This was because the human race was the common enemy of all the otherworldly devils and outsiders in the starry river. Once the weak stepped out, they would face death. However, if the human race could coexist peacefully with the outsiders, and the weaker mortals could leave on ancient starships, wouldn't they be able to quickly take root in different realms and give birth to more and more powerful cultivators? He had a feeling that the Shunhun sect's new concept was very likely to allow the human race to develop by leaps and bounds, far beyond what it was now. It's hard to predict what the future will be like, but it's not like we can't give it a try, Yu Yuan said. Chapter 835. Yan Qiling's message caused the scales in his heart to tilt slightly in favor of Tiansong. The silver-gray yin energy inside the brilliant river of stars was boundless. Neither Luo Yu nor Yu Yuan knew the details of the battle inside unless they went inside. They could only wait. The battle between the three Ghost Kings obviously wouldn't be decided in a short time. Yu Yuan made a few more attempts while waiting. Every time, he was able to establish a mental connection with the soul pool and the strange small space. This gave him some confidence. He thought that even if Nether Capital won in the end, he would have something to rely on. Whoosh! A huge beehive came whistling from Thousand Tribulations' Ghost King's territory. It didn't take long for it to stop next to Luo Yu. The plump queen bee swayed gracefully as she stood at the entrance of the beehive. Her figure was still blurry, as if she was protecting herself. "Who will you choose, Luo Ho?" Thousand Tribulations asked. "Me." Luo Yu pointed at the bridge of her nose and smiled sweetly. "I won't choose anyone. What about you?" "I'll swear my loyalty to whoever comes out of there will be the final victor." Thousand Tribulations was very direct. "As long as Nether Capital is alive, I'll swear my loyalty to Nether Capital. As long as White Bones is the only victor, I'll listen to White Bones. If Tiansong defeats the other two and becomes the ghost god of the Land of Terror, I don't care what he used to be. I'll listen to him." She then said plaintively, "For someone like me who has a hard life, this is the only way I can have a chance to live. A fence-sitter is a fence-sitter." Luo Yu mocked. "However, as long as you don't try to compete for the ghost god and are smart, you shouldn't be in any danger. Whatever you say. A fence-sitter is a fence-sitter. It's better than dying." Thousand Tribulations looked deeply at Yu Yuan. She was very surprised by Yu Yuan. Tiansong appeared in the Land of Terror with an almost invincible attitude. He didn't put anyone in his eyes. Why did he think so highly of this kid and try to curry favor with him? What kind of magical powers does this kid have? Just because he had been recognized by the Shunhun sect and was compatible with the formation of the Forbidden Land of the Fallen Moons, he was being treated so well? This didn't make sense, and she didn't believe it either. Mingdu, a delicate and beautiful figure, floated out from the Yin mountain that had grown taller because of Mingdu. Jiang Xingwen, who looked weak and haggard, looked like she had yet to recover from her injuries. After she came out, she looked around and finally looked at the Soul Crossing River. She sensed the aura of Mingdu. "So it's you," Luo Yu sneered, her face cold. "Mingdu is using you. Don't tell me you don't know that?" Yu Yuan frowned slightly. The strands of sword intent and sword aura that originated from the Soul Crossing River at the bottom of the scabbard he held in his hand transmitted a lot of information, allowing him to roughly guess some of the facts. Moon-severing Grand Cultivators had a very deep relationship with Jiang Xingwen's master or seniors in her family. Their relationship was so deep that the sword intent and sword aura that the moon-severing Grand Cultivators had left behind could identify Jiang Xingwen from her aura. That was why they had purposely restrained the sharpness of their sword intent for her. It was also because of this that Mingdu was in a much better situation before he became a Ghost King, allowing him to set up many things with ease. So, did Jiang Xingwen know what was going on? Use? I did it willingly. What use is there? Jiang Xingwen's spirit floated, revealing a pale face. She said with a sad expression, "Lord Luo, you've never loved a man before, have you? Don't you know that you can give everything you have to love someone?" Luo Yu went blank and didn't say anything for a long time. However, the Thousand Tribulations Ghost King seemed to be reminded of something. She was about to agree with Luo Yu, so she held back her mocking words towards Jiang Xingwen. As a woman, Luo Yu might not have loved anyone before. However, when she was the queen bee of the Goblin Temple, she had thrown herself into a flame like a moth. Unfortunately, the handsome man she loved deeply didn't care about her at all. Yu Yuan, that bastard Lu Lu really came back from sword prison? Thousand Tribulations suddenly stared at Yu Yuan as if he had a stroke. Why did you go to the desolate God Great Lake for no reason? A bastard like Lu Lu should be locked up in sword prison forever, never to be reincarnated. These words were said through gritted teeth, full of hatred. However, Yu Yuan thought about it carefully and seemed to understand something. "Lord Thousand Tribulations, is there something between you and Lord Lulu? About that, when I was outside Green Phoenix City, Lord Lulu even saved me. Also, I think Lord Lulu also supports Tian Song becoming a ghost god." Luo Yu suddenly came to a realization. She suddenly realized what Qian Jie said just now. He said that if Tian Song became a demon god, she would obediently obey. Could it be that she wanted Tian Song to become a demon god? Then, she would obey Tian Song and become a part of the Shunhun sect. Then, she would be in the same camp as Lulu? Lulu is my sworn enemy. Thousand Tribulations shouted. Understood. Yu Yuan and Luo Yu exchanged a glance, and both of them understood what was going on. Jiang Xingwen floated to the side and kept muttering the name, Nether Capital. There should be some kind of secret soul connection between her and the Nether Capital Ghost King that allowed her to know the general situation of Nether Capital. Her expression was pained, as if she had a bad premonition. After a while, she suddenly cried loudly, "No!" Yu Yuan and Luo Yu couldn't see what was happening in the depths of the brilliant river of stars. They didn't know why she was so emotional. "Sigh, forget it." Nether Capital's voice came slowly from the depths of the soul-crossing river. It was filled with longing and reluctance to part with this world. No, no. Jiang Xingwen did her best to get closer to the brilliant river of stars. Thousand Tribulation frowned. He couldn't bear to see her like this, so he grabbed Jiang Xingwen from a distance and threw her into a cave in the hive. "Don't go looking for death. That level of power isn't something you can interfere with. Nether Capital, Nether Capital." Jiang Xingwen was still shouting. However, because of Thousand Tribulations' power, her voice gradually grew weaker. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All of a sudden, the dense yin qi that had been pouring into the brilliant river of stars vanished without a trace. Under their feet, the nether river of the netherworld that corresponded to Nether Capital stopped flowing and gradually dried up. It was the opposite. In White Bone's territory, the nether river of the netherworld was expanding at a visible rate. Nether Capital lost its power and became narrow. The nether river that stopped flowing helped White Bone's nether river expand, causing White Bone's power to reach a height that was even stronger than when it was at its peak. Within the soul-crossing river, the two pupils of the White Bone turned emerald green. Clusters of white flames miraculously merged with the thousands of souls in the depths of the soul-crossing river. At this time, he seemed to have replaced Nether Capital and become the new master of the soul-crossing river. The white flames burning in his body didn't have the aura that could purify the tainted souls. They could also nourish the souls of the dead. It allowed the souls that were imprisoned by Nether Capital in the soul-crossing river to obtain a feeling similar to transcendence. They once again entered the cycle of life and death, and were once again controlled by the source of the Yin vein. The great Tao was completed. The source of the Yin vein had been tampered with by Nether Capital. A portion of the Tao laws that had been twisted had been completed by Nether Capital. After Nether Capital had given up on itself and used its own death to complete White Bone. Nether Capital had been called the poison in its body. Now that Nether Capital was dead, it was like a long illness had been cured. Yu Yuan, use that sword art and stab those white flames. Can you lend me a hand? On the blood spirit altar, the blue-faced, fierce-looking Tian Song suddenly regained a trace of reason and made a request to Yu Yuan. White Bone's refinement of Nether Capital's souls is at the most critical moment. If you use the soul-breaking slash, it definitely won't be able to withstand it. You know that you're on our side. Luo Yu and Qian Jie suddenly looked at Yu Yuan. Yu Yuan, who was holding the scabbard, hesitated because of Tian Song's words. Tian Song represented the Shunhun sect, the one who represented the giant bronze coffin. It was possible that he also represented his first life. He had a feeling that if he listened to Tian Song's suggestion and used the soul-breaking slash, at full power, the current White Bone might not be able to withstand it. However, when he thought about how White Bone had taken care of him since he stepped into the Land of Terror, he found it difficult to wield the sword. At this time, the will of the source of the Yin vein passed on a secret message. When Yu Yuan sensed this message, his thoughts of wielding the sword were completely cut off. White Bone's previous life was the ancestor of the Yu family, evil King Yu Jian. Chapter 836. Yu Ling Ghost King was an exceptional Ghost King from the same era as Nether Capital 1,000 years ago. Knowing that Ghost King was the limit, and that he could not advance further as a ghost, Yu Ling decisively chose to reincarnate with his memories. Therefore, 300 years later, Heavenly Evil Sect produced a genius, Evil King Yu Zhen. After reincarnating, Yu Ling became Yu Zhen. Then, he used 300 years to cultivate to the nascent spirit realm. It was said that after Evil King Yu Zhen formed his nascent spirit, he was eager to prove himself and attacked the outer realms. He was surrounded by many otherworldly demons and peak experts of other races. Before Evil King died, Heavenly Evil Sect was like the sun at noon. Like the Red Devil School and the Blood God of this era, it had the potential to compete with the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple. There was a saying that if Evil King Yu Zhen had successfully returned from the outer realms and proved himself through the otherworldly demons and other races, Heavenly Evil Sect would have become the third strongest force in the Tranquil Continent after the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple. The Yu family would have been brought to the Tranquil Continent by him and become one of the top families. No one would have thought that Evil King Yu Zhen, a peak expert who appeared out of nowhere, was Yu Ling Ghost King from the Land of Terror 1,000 years ago. After he reincarnated, he really succeeded in cultivating a primordial spirit for him. Unfortunately, his nascent spirit was short-lived. He was surrounded and killed by many experts in the outer realms. Through some unknown method, a wisp of his soul escaped and became the current White Bones Ghost King. Yu Ling, Evil King Yu Zhen, and now White Bones were the same person. No wonder. Many questions were answered because of the news from the source of the Yin vein. Why did he receive White Bones' favor not long after he stepped into the Land of Terror? Why did White Bones choose him so firmly? White Bones knew that he was called Yu Yuan and that he came from the Yu family of Dark Moon City. In White Bones' eyes, Yu Yuan was its descendant. No wonder White Bones looked at Zicheng with a playful gaze. When he was Evil King Yu Zhen, his best friend was the current leader of the Blood God, Anwen, who was Zicheng's father. In his eyes, Zicheng was his own junior. He rarely spoke, but after experiencing Yu Ling, Yu Zhen, and White Bones, what could he not see? Why did he not fear everything and dare to challenge Nether Capital? This was because he had already achieved what the Dark North had failed to do. He had once cultivated to the ultimate essence soul realm as a human. In the outside world, the primordial was equal to the ghost god of the land of terror. He, who had seen the highest scenery, was actually superior to the dark north capital and Tian-tsang in terms of vision and bearing. Tian-tsang was in the form of an extraterritorial heavenly devil. He could only cultivate to the level of devil god, which was the freedom realm of the human race. Only the great devil god of the heavenly devils could compete with the primordial spirit of the human race. Only such an unprecedented existence could gain the trust and support of the source of the unveil, allowing him, Mingdu, and Tian-tsang to compete for the ghost gods. Ancestor of the Yu family. A series of thoughts flashed through his mind. Holding the scabbard, he made a decision. The soul-crossing river transformed into a brilliant river of stars. White flames soothed the remnant souls and ghosts at the bottom of the river, allowing the dead souls imprisoned by Nether Capital to be at peace. It also allowed White Bone's soul to completely merge with this earth-shattering soul weapon. Nether Capital's aura finally became faint and undetectable. Tian-tsang, who was tall and stood on the blood spirit altar, had a pair of blue eyes that shone with a puzzled light. He did not seem to understand why Yu Yuan did not use the soul-breaking slash, as he was told. Once this slash was used, White Bones, who had refined Nether Capital's remnant souls, would definitely suffer a backlash. If he put in more effort, he should be able to get rid of White Bones and become the new ruler of the Land of Terror. Yu Yuan did not keep silent and calm as he expected. Why? Seeing the white flames burning more fiercely, Tian-tsang could not help but ask. Yu Yuan laughed dryly and shook his head. I have my reasons. Sigh. The ferocity and cruelty on Tian-tsang's face vanished in an instant. Feeling White Bone's aura filling the entire soul-crossing river and slowly crushing the soul power swamps he had spread, Tian-tsang knew he was in trouble. The complete source of the veins in the Land of Terror had no more flaws. With the soul-crossing river in hand, White Bones carried the power of the source of the veins. Its battle prowess would soar endlessly. He was no longer its match. If Nether Capital's death was just his own wish, if he did not use it to help White Bones, he would not be afraid. He still had a backup plan. But Nether Capital had taken the initiative to merge with White Bones, allowing White Bones to devour and refine him. After obtaining all the soul arts he had comprehended, White Bones obediently gave up the control of the soul-crossing river. Because of this, White Bones was able to accept everything without shedding a drop of blood or suffering any loss. Tian-tsang could not do anything to White Bones. It's all in vain. Tian-tsang sighed regretfully. His body suddenly changed, and he turned into a middle-aged man as thin as iron. He grabbed the shrunken blood spirit altar and flew out of the soul-crossing river in an instant. Then, he condensed the turbid demon fetus into a colorful robe and draped it over his body. The turbid demon fetus wrapped around his thin human body like a cloak. The blue crystal in his hand was the blood spirit altar. This was Tian-tsang's form in the Land of Terror. He was as thin as iron, with a dark face and a bitter face, as if someone owed him a lot of money and had not paid it back. On the other side, after he left, the brilliant river of stars was finally refined by White Bones. Every detail was branded with White Bones' unique soul will. Suddenly, the brilliant river of stars shrank into a long strip and became a belt again, wrapping around White Bones' waist. White Bones was holding the sharp all refined by the mountains in his hand, and the soul-crossing river was wrapped around his waist. The light shining from the depths of his green eyes was so bright that no one dared to look directly at him. Anyone who looked into his eyes felt as if their soul would be sucked into him. Whoosh! Whoosh! It was as if the water of the Nether River flowed through Bai Gu's bones. Tens of millions of sunflower essence mixed in the depths of his bones like specks of starlight, giving him the courage to challenge Tian-tsang in his current state. Boom! Rumble! Within 100 kilometers, The towering Een Mountains were either collapsing or rapidly shortening. Nether Capital was dead, and the Nether River in the underworld dried up. There was no abundant Een Chi in this area to supply the Een Mountains. As a result, the previous prosperity was like a castle in the air. Qian Jie and Luo Yu, the two ghost kings, were flabbergasted by the new changes. Had White Bones become the final winner? Looking at White Bones, who was the weakest among them, how could he make the Nether Capital sacrifice himself for justice, and Tian Song leave the Soul Crossing River voluntarily? Jiang Xingwen watched as White Bones and Tian Song stepped out, and the Een Mountain that represented the Nether Capital behind her rapidly shrank. She bowed her head and wept softly. However, no one paid any attention to her. Who would have thought that a soul from back then could grow so strong? Wrapped in the turbid demon embryo cloak, and holding the blood spirit altar in his hand, Tian Song took a deep look at White Bones. You were very weak when you came to the forbidden land of the fallen moons in your soul form. It's just that your spiritual awareness is amazing. I've secretly observed you many times, and even gave you some advice. The so-called amazing spiritual awareness was actually White Bones' soul, which had retained complete memories. With his experience in Yuling and the glorious life of the evil king, how could his spiritual awareness not be amazing? Even the weakest spirit soul would appear special and extraordinary from such a skeleton. I'll never forget the favor you've shown me in the forbidden land of the fallen moons, Senior. You know each other. Qian Jie and Luo Yu exclaimed in unison. Tian Song smiled. He went to the forbidden land of the fallen moons and cultivated there for a while. I saw that he was full of spiritual awareness, so I showed up and communicated with him a few times. The more I talked to him, the more extraordinary he became. He thought I was the heavenly devil Yu Qian, and I thought he was just a smart soul. I'm deeply honored that you think so highly of me, Senior. However, I've gone further than you in my pursuit of ultimate power. White Bones' eyes shone brightly as he said these words. I've left a deep mark in the history of Howren. When I enter the Ghost God realm, you'll know that you didn't lose unjustly, Senior. Chapter 837. After shrinking, Bai Gu's small bone body stood on the ground like a silver spear, showing off its sharpness. He didn't deliberately show his power, but his demeanor at this moment made Qian Jie and Luo Yu subconsciously think that if the Land of Terror really gave birth to a ruler, that was Bai Gu in front of them, not Tian Song and the dead Mingdu. Because his Bai Gu had this kind of aura and charm. Only Yu Yuan, after learning that Bai Gu was the evil King Yuzhen, understood why Bai Gu took the ghost god throne for granted. Bai Gu, who cultivated the primordial spirit, had seen what the ultimate power was like. He already had that kind of knowledge and insight. You went further than me? Tian Song frowned, and his expression became gloomy. He mocked when he was both a demon god and a ghost king, once at the peak realm, and his name shook the world of Howren. What else could it be if he went further than him? The Land of Terror had never given birth to a ghost god, so there was only one possibility, the primordial spirit. Bai Gu's voice was indifferent, as calm as water, without ripples. After Yuling, before Bai Gu. After Yuling, before Bai Gu, the person in between was after reincarnation. With the body of a human, he cultivated the ultimate primordial spirit. Looking at Bai Gu's expression, no one would think that he was spouting nonsense or spouting nonsense. Therefore, not only Ghost King Tian Song, but also Qian Jie and Luo Yu were shocked. The three Ghost Kings immediately guessed the shocking truth from Bai Gu's word. You, who are you? In the hive, Ghost King Qian Jie's voice trembled with fear. Luo Yu was shocked. You succeeded? Bai Gu nodded gently. Luo Yu's beautiful eyes brightened, and her whole person suddenly became radiant. So, as a Ghost King, reincarnating into a human and walking the road again is really feasible. Before Bai Gu, No Ghost King could prove that this road was feasible. Luo Yu was hesitant because she didn't have confidence. Before this, there was no evidence. But now, White Bone had personally admitted it. It was like a bright lamp guiding her, telling her that this path was feasible. Since Baigu could be formed, Luo Yu's path of seeking the ghost god would not be obstructed. She would open up another path and be reborn as a human. She would walk the path again and try to attain the primordial spirit. With the flower basket in her hand, she bowed to White Bones. "When I take that path, please take care of me." "It's part of the agreement," White Bones said casually. Luo Yu was completely relieved. She didn't say anything more. She began to look forward to her reincarnation. She looked forward to the various miraculous things that would happen when she quickly broke through realms because her memories were still there. "Henceforth, my 1,000 tribulations will honor you." At this moment, the person in the beehive had the knot in his heart untied. He cupped his fists respectfully towards White Bone. A pinnacle expert who had once cultivated to the primordial spirit realm was worthy of her respect and loyalty. At this moment, Qian Jie realized that in the battle between Yuling and the Dark North capital 1,000 years ago, Yuling was actually the victor. Even though the Dark North capital had rushed into the depths of the outer realms, at its strongest, it had stopped at the level of a Ghost King. No matter how strong a Ghost King was, it was still a Ghost King. It was not the pinnacle of strength. On the contrary, Yuling, who had abandoned everything in the Land of Terror and decisively chosen to reincarnate as a human, had actually succeeded in condensing a primordial spirit with the body of a human and become a primordial spirit cultivator. A primordial spirit cultivator was the pinnacle of strength. It was an existence that could fight with any foreign race in the depths of the vast universe. How many primordial spirit cultivators had been born in the glorious era of the human race? The probability of 1 in a billion was achieved by White Bones. He had long surpassed the Dark North capital and Tiansong. Therefore, no matter what happened later, no matter why Yuling had turned into White Bones, he was the winner. He had opened a new path. "I see." Ghost King Tiansong pondered for a long time. In his mind, he thought of the primordial spirit cultivators who had accidentally died in the past 1,000 years. He wanted to see which one could match White Bones. Soon, he had an answer in his heart. He knew the truth. Tiansong first looked beyond the sky, then glanced at the heavenly evil sect. "But," White Bones nodded again. "If that's the case, you're right. I didn't lose unjustly." Tiansong was relieved. He didn't feel too much regret. "Since it's you, I think the one behind me can accept it. After more than 700 years, you should know the truth of that battle, right?" Baigu's jade-green eyes were cold. "Got it. Hee, that's good." Tiansong laughed. "I'll give up the position of Spectre God to you. Just like 1,000 years ago, I'll leave the Land of Terror. I won't accept your orders, and I don't need your help." "That's good," said White Bones. "You and I are no longer enemies," Tiansong said. "I can't predict what the future will be like." White Bones didn't say anything. He glanced at the ground beneath his feet. "My will is one with his. I don't know what he'll choose in the future. It's fine as long as he's neutral." Tiansong also looked at the ground beneath his feet. He hesitated for a few seconds, then looked up at Yu Yuan. "I understand your difficulties. I can accept this result. For now, that one hopes that you can stay in the Land of Terror for a while." Since White Bones was the evil King Yuzhen, the ancestor of the Yu family, why should he take it to heart? Yu Yuan hadn't used the soul-severing slash to attack him with the scabbard. That was already giving him face. "Amen, I'll stay and cultivate for a while longer," Yu Yuan said. "By the time you leave, perhaps the entire vast world will have undergone earth-shattering changes." Tiansong grinned. "By then, the 3 high sects, the Devil's Palace, and the Goblin Temple will no longer be the rulers of this world. Ah! Wearing the turbid demon fetus, Tian Tsang laughed and flew into the distance. Gradually, he disappeared. I have something to say to Yu Yuan. White Bones glanced at Qian Jie and Luo Yu. If you don't have anything else to say, you can return to your own territories. I'll go into seclusion for a while to digest the power of the Nether Capital. When I come out, I should be in the Ghost God realm. Judging from his expression, becoming a ghost god like the Land of Terror had never seen before was as easy as eating or drinking. Luo Yu and Qian Jie exchanged a glance. Then, they nodded and bowed tactfully. Then, they obediently left the area. Naturally, Qian Jie also took Jiang Xingwen's Yin spirit with him to prevent her soul from dissipating due to her heartbreak. Soon, aside from Yu Yuan and Bai Gu, there were no longer any sentient soul spirits within a radius of 100 kilometers. What did it say to you? General Bai Gu casually tossed the sharp awl in his hand into the distance. The awl turned into a beam of silver light and fell from Grey Mama's territory to his territory. Yu Yuan knew that the land where the awl landed would become the Yin Mountain, where White Bones cultivated. Amen, evil King Yuzhen, the Yu family's forefather. Yu Yuan pulled the corner of his mouth and laughed self-deprecatingly. I think it should have told you that I can't be considered your descendant in the true sense. In my previous life, I was the medicine god Hanch. Because something went wrong in my reincarnation, I became a member of Dark Moon City's Yu family. It was fated long ago. White Bones seemed to be smiling. Light flashed in his green eyes. Something went wrong in your reincarnation because your heavenly soul and earth soul haven't returned yet. No matter if you succeed or not, you will become Yu Yuan of the Yu family, my descendant in name. Yu Yuan thought for a moment and agreed with him. That is indeed the case. This is the fate between you and me. White Bones looked at him with a gratified expression. I'm very surprised that someone like you would appear in the Yu family after me. From the moment you came in and appeared in my sight, I knew who you were. You and I were destined to be together. Yu Yuan's feelings were somewhat complicated. After learning that he was evil King Yuzhen, the Yu family's forefather in this life, Yu Yuan felt a little uncomfortable. When he was with him, he was slightly restrained. I thought of you as a comrade, but you have always thought of yourself as a forefather. With this thought, Yu Yuan's face stiffened. When I condensed my nascent divinity and stepped into the outer realms of the Starry River, I wasn't as arrogant as the rumors said. White Bones's eyes were deep and his tone was cold. I also wanted to collect rare spiritual materials in the Starry River to refine my artifacts and soul. But no one gave me a chance. When I entered the core of a star and awakened for the first time, I suddenly found that I was surrounded by 2 great demon gods and 3 outsider patriarchs. I was forced to accept the challenge, and somehow, I became the fastest human to fall after advancing to the immortal soul stage. With these words, killing intent that seemed to be tangible circulated around White Bones. Strands of killing intent swirled around him, forming a blood-red star. The star suddenly collapsed. He woke up in a daze and immediately found that he was surrounded. A fierce battle broke out in an instant without any warning. Even someone as powerful as him, who had just advanced to the Essence Soul realm, was powerless against the combined assault of 5 existences of the same level or even more powerful. He didn't even have a chance to escape. Fortunately, he used to be the Serene Tomb Ghost King and was proficient in many secret soul arts. When he exploded and died, he successfully sent away a wisp of his soul. That was how he became White Bones today. Chapter 838. Not many people know about my refinement of my nascent spirit and artifacts on that bright red star. The killing intent surrounding Bai Gu's body suddenly withdrew. His bone body once again became translucent and glittering with treasure light. Zhu Zhenying of the Devil's Palace is one of the people who knows. Bai Gu's tone was unusually calm when he said this. He only glanced casually in the direction of the Devil's Palace. Mo Yen is his youngest son. But he doesn't get along with you. How interesting. Bai Gu seemed to laugh. I heard that you took the fiend demon cauldron that originally belonged to him from the bottom of the Stardust Sea. I felt that it was an eye for an eye. Yu Yuan's curiosity was immediately piqued. What's the story behind it? I won't hide it from you, Bai Gu said slowly. He, who had once been the Yu Ling Ghost King, had mastered a unique body refinement art as he evolved from his ghostly form in the Land of Terror. He used Yin energy and Yin sunflower essence to refine his body. The body that had been hiding in the small world in the crack of the stone and had many Yin sunflower essences was his Yu Ling body. It was something he had refined himself and had endless uses. He had created this technique himself. After he had successfully reincarnated and become the evil King Yushun, he had studied many profound spells and secret arts of the heavenly evil sect. He had combined them with the body refinement arts he had learned when he was the Yu Ling Ghost King to create a miraculous technique that used his fleshly body to refine corpses. Using the bodies of dead people to refine corpses could be done by humans, monsters, outsiders, and ferocious beasts. After refining the corpses, he could control them with secret arts, and he could also occupy them with his soul. In battle, they could unleash great power. He had taught the corpse refinement art to a disciple who was extraordinarily talented but had an extreme personality. However, when he wanted to promote this technique, he was strongly opposed by all the elders of the evil sky sect. At that time, some of the old practitioners of the three great sects, the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple, thought that refining corpses was harmful to the harmony of the world and was even more extreme than the secret technique of the Blood God. He had many exquisite secret techniques. Seeing that the corpse refining technique was so unpopular, he didn't continue to immerse himself in it. He had also given the order to forbid that extreme disciple from continuing to study the art of refining corpses. However, that disciple was already completely engrossed in it. Moreover, he had benefited greatly from the corpse refinement technique, and his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. That disciple respected him very much and viewed him as a father. In order to not bring trouble to him and the heavenly evil sect, that disciple had taken the initiative to leave the heavenly evil sect and establish his own sect. He had even recruited a few young disciples to study the corpse refining technique. Instead, he had developed this obscure evil technique. Later on, for some unknown reason, Zhu Zhenying of the Devil's Palace found his disciple and asked for the secret method and trick of refining corpses. His disciple was very accomplished in the corpse refining technique, so he didn't agree to Zhu Zhenying's request. Not long after, Zhu Zhenying represented the Devil's Palace and used the excuse that the corpse refining technique was too extreme and shouldn't exist in the world as an excuse to kill his disciple. She also chased after all the people who studied the corpse refining technique. The corpse refining technique was also classified as a forbidden technique by the Devil's Palace. Anyone who dared to practice it would be killed without mercy. At that time, the evil king was the sect master of the heavenly evil sect, and his reputation was like the sun in the sky. Although that disciple was an abandoned disciple, he truly loved him. After he was killed by Zhu Zhenying, she chased after all the people who studied the corpse refining technique. He was dissatisfied, so he took the opportunity to cause trouble and killed Zhu Zhenying's disciple and subordinate. The two of them became enemies. At that time, the evil king hadn't condensed his primordial spirit yet. He said that when he reached the primordial spirit realm and stabilized his realm, he would immediately challenge Zhu Zhenying. Everyone knew that his so-called challenge was because he was dissatisfied with Zhu Zhenying for killing his disciple. 700 years ago, he used the name of the evil king to roam the tranquil continent. Everyone avoided him like a snake or a scorpion. Although Zhu Jingying was the second most powerful person in the Devil's Palace, she still couldn't suppress his limelight. What was even more shocking was that he did as he said. Not long after, he condensed his primordial spirit. The purpose of his trip to the outer realms of the universe was to stabilize his nascent divinity realm and cleanse his body and soul with the special ability of pure gold that shone brightly in the starry sky. Then, he would return to his peak state and challenge Zhu Zhenxing of the Devil Palace. In the end, Zhu Jingying must have used some method to tell the experts in the outer realms that I was hiding in that bright red star to cultivate, causing me to be besieged. 700 years later, when White Bones talked about the past, it still seemed to be quite emotional. My death and the other 5 were injured to varying degrees. The Devil's Palace benefited from it. They destroyed a heavenly devil nest and killed several devil gods, White Bones said with a snort. 700 years later, his youngest son has made things difficult for you over and over again. I'm afraid he knows that you and the Yu clan are my descendants. His green eyes suddenly lit up. What surprised me was that you didn't lose to Mo Yen in the slightest. If that person hadn't interfered, that little bastard Mo Yen might have been sent to the forbidden land of the fallen moon and torn to pieces by the heavenly devils. White Bones' eyes were filled with joy as he said this. Oh right, the inheritance of the corpse refining technique hasn't been cut off. Yu Yuan suddenly thought of the person he had met on Flying Clouds Island and the Een Corpse King imprisoned in Sword Prison. He said, I've seen 2 Een Corpse Kings who cultivate this secret technique. They should be your disciples' disciples. I've heard about it before, and know that it hasn't been cut off. It's just that my legacy disciple is no longer here. White Bones didn't seem to have much affection for the new generation of corpse refiners. Then, he changed the topic and said arrogantly, You don't have to worry too much about the Yu family in the abandoned land. I'll take care of everything. After I finish my secluded cultivation and become a specter god, I'll become the ruler of the land of terror. I don't think there will be many people who will dare to provoke my descendant. After leaving the land of terror, a specter god was on par with demon gods and nascent divinity realm experts. In his territory, the land of terror, he was invincible. For example, as long as the desolate god stayed in the great lake of the desolate god, no expert in Howren would be able to defeat him in a one-on-one battle. Once White Bones became a specter god, he would become one of the most powerful experts in this part of the world. He wouldn't be bound by anyone or any force. As long as he didn't choose to stand with the Shenhun sect and become the enemy of all living beings in Howren, he wouldn't fall. Even the Goblin Temple, the Devil's Palace, and the 3 great sects would have to give him face and not touch the Yu family's town. All the children of the Yu family can come to the land of terror to refine their Een souls after they condense them. White Bones' eyes shone brightly. From now on, the land of terror will be the backyard of the Yu family's juniors. As for you, stay here and refine your Een soul. Ignore the news outside. After I become a specter god, I'll gain true freedom. At that time, I'll tell the world that I'm evil King Yushin, and I'll settle the score with Zhu Zhenxing. White Bones was in high spirits. At the border, Chao Jiazi turned around and looked at the gray granny ghost's territory. He listened to the shattering of Een Mountain and the shrinking of the towering peak. The dark nether capital was the first to perish. Chao Jiazi frowned deeply. He had never expected that the dark nether capital, who had once ruled the dark nether capital, would vanish in such a short time. The nether river had stopped flowing, the Een Mountain in his territory had collapsed, and the towering Een Mountain had shrunk. It was a crushing defeat. He, who had never failed before, was filled with bitterness. He shook his head and laughed self-deprecatingly. The Shenhun sect, oh, the Shenhun sect, is indeed stronger than I expected. Even the sect master, who always makes perfect calculations, has fallen into someone else's trap this time. The shell that carried the dark nether capital's corpse had been possessed by Tian Song. The blood spirit altar that he had refined was actually Tian Song's possession in the early years. When Tian Song returned with the help of the Shenhun sect and revealed the identity of the Blue Devils, he knew that there was nothing he could do. He admitted his failure and understood that even the sect master hadn't calculated everything. Whoosh! He secretly sensed the gathering of the yin qi of heaven and earth. He looked at White Bone's territory in surprise and said in shock, the final winner wasn't Tian Song. Tian Song, who held the blood spirit altar, possessed Mingdu's body, and had thousands of years of foundation as a ghost king, lost to White Bones? Chao Jiazi was a little confused. Fine, fine. Chao Jiazi, who had accepted the situation in front of him, flew up and rushed to the outside world. After a while, the blue sky and white clouds reappeared in his vision. The dim sky was no longer there. Disciple! Han Qi suddenly stood up and waved from afar. How is it? Did the Ghost King named Mingdu successfully kill White Bones and take back everything that once belonged to him? As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes gathered on Chao Jiazi, waiting for an answer. White Bones will become a ghost god. P.S. Sorry, something happened at the last minute yesterday, so I didn't have time to inform you. Chapter 839. Bai Gu will become a specter god. The news brought by Chao Jiazi caused all the cultivators gathered here to shout. The winner is Bai Gu Ghost King? Unbelievable, this is unbelievable. Years ago, Bai Gu was only the third-ranked titled Dark Ghost. How could he defeat Black Staff, Frigid Abyss, and the returning Mingdu in such a short time and become the only competitor for the Spectre God seat? Tian Song, as the oldest Spectre King, who has the support behind him, is still not Bai Gu's match. Did everyone underestimate Bai Gu? Everyone discussed. Those who stayed here were all sects and forces from the Tianyuan continent and the Tranquil continent. They were all very concerned about this matter and knew that the birth of a spectre god in the Land of Terror had far-reaching implications. It was possible that it would change the situation in Howren in the future. The three high sects, led by the Xiantian sect, had already made arrangements for this. They had arranged for Chao Jiazi, the most capable person in the sect, to bring a Sky Palace seal and the blood spirit altar deep into the dark abyss, secretly coming to an agreement with the Mingdu Ghost King. It was enough to show how much importance the three high sects attached to the Land of Terror. Chao Jiazi, who had never lost, supported the Mingdu Spectre King. How could the Mingdu Spectre King lose? Everyone stared at Chao Jiazi and questioned. Chao Jiazi, on the other hand, was rather patient. Facing his master, Han Qi, and the other old cultivators from various factions, he patiently explained what he had seen and guessed. On the Red Devil School's side, Fang Yao was stunned. He rubbed his chin and stared deeply at the sea of clouds. He said in surprise, I know Bai Gu, but I didn't expect this guy to be able to defeat all the specters and become the strongest competitor for the Spectre God seat. The other disciples of the Red Devil School also clicked their tongues in amazement and said that Bai Gu was extremely lucky. It was said that the reason the sect was able to establish a relationship with Bai Gu was because Fang Yao had helped Bai Gu in the past. However, there was no unbreakable deep relationship between the two sides. Fang Yao didn't know Bai Gu very well. Fang Yao found it hard to believe that Bai Gu had become the only competitor for the Spectre God seat in the Land of Terror. He said to Yuan Lianyao, Girl Yuan, don't worry. The winner was White Bones, so Yuan was in no danger inside. As for you, don't enter the Land of Terror again. Obediently return to the Red Devil School and break through to the soul-traversing realm in one go. I can go to the Land of Despair for you. Ho Tianzhao laughed heartily and volunteered, White Bones and Lord Feng Yao are friends, so he will still give our Red Devil School some face. As for me, Yu Yuan and I are friends who have gone through life and death together. He definitely won't harm me. If you want to go, you can, Feng Yao said. He continued to persuade Yuan Lianyao, telling her not to be reckless and to try her best to increase her strength so that she would meet Yu Yuan again in the future. Yuan Lianyao was convinced. On the other side, in a remote grayish-brown mountain, there was a protruding stone platform halfway up the mountain. Lush trees grew on it. Ghost King Chuling, who wielded the spirit-locking diagram, and Enziching of the Blood God sat across from each other. At this time, Enziching's Een soul had returned to her body. The purple divine armor on her body released a divine light that no one dared to look at directly under the sunlight. I really didn't expect this. Ghoul King Chuling saw what had happened in the Land of Terror through the spirit-locking diagram, and learned what had happened. Even my lord was defeated by Tiansong, but it was Bai Gu who won in the end. Through the spirit-locking diagram, Enziching also saw that Bai Gu had finally walked out of the brilliant river of stars. The moment the white bones appeared, the mysteries of heaven were blinded, and the spirit-locking diagram could no longer reflect the scene. This meant that White Bones' power was so great that even ghost kings of the same level would find it difficult to see through it, even with the help of extraordinary soul artifacts. Whoosh! A middle-aged man in a red robe, whose skin was so white that the veins under his skin could be clearly seen, suddenly appeared on the protruding stone platform. The man was unbelievably handsome. He wore a long robe, a jade pendant, a bloodstone universe ring, and a pair of blood snake earrings. The man exuded a demonic aura. His eyebrows were long and thin, and his phoenix eyes glowed with bloody light. White Bones, I was the one who told you to be careful. The man's voice was pleasant and refreshing. After Dark Star Capital appeared and invited you to work together, I was the one who stopped you. If I hadn't warned you several times, you would have listened to Dark Star Capital and attacked White Bones. Lord Father. And Ziching rolled her eyes. So you were the one who stopped Chuling. Olden, I thank you for your foresight. But can you tell me why you favor Bai Gu alone? Ghost King Chuling snorted and said, You're right. When White Bones first became a dark ghost in the Land of Terror, I didn't pay attention to him. It was because of your warning that I paid attention and secretly observed him. Through some of his subsequent actions, I discovered that he was indeed unusual. After that, when we descended to the crack in the stone, I knew he was Yu Ling. But so what if he was Yu Ling? 1,000 years ago, Yu Ling was only on par with Dark Star Capital. He didn't have much of an advantage. I don't understand why you're stopping me from doing anything to White Bones. Chuling was full of complaints. He and Anwen were old friends. He had always valued the opinion of the sect master of the Blood God. The reason for that was because he knew how terrifying Anwen would be if he were to go crazy. Hundreds of years ago, when Anwen had made a name for himself in the Blood God sect, he had been a terrifying existence. No one wanted to be an enemy of Anwen. Anwen had lost control of himself several times while cultivating the Blood God's extreme secret arts. Who knew how much blood he had been stained by? But he had survived every time. Step by step, he had become the sect master of the Blood God. He was at the peak of the Freedom Realm and could break through to the nascent Spirit Realm at any time. Chuling felt that Anwen had at least a 70% chance of breaking through to the nascent Spirit Realm. Because I knew from the start that he would be the final victor. Anwen smiled. If he can't, then Dark Star Capital and Tiansong can't either. Chuling and Enziching's expressions changed slightly when they heard this. They looked at him in confusion. I, Anwen, have acknowledged the only person in my life. How can I lose? Anwen grinned, looking extremely happy. 700 years ago, he and I were known as the evil duo. He was even more evil than I was. He even killed Zhu Zheniying's people and looked down on the Devil's Palace. That was why something happened to him right after he entered the nascent spirit realm. Chuling and Enziching's expressions changed as they cried out. Anwen didn't need to say that name. With their understanding of Anwen, they knew that the only person he acknowledged was the evil king of the heavenly evil sect, Yu Zhen. Since it's done, there's no need to hide anything. Anwen nodded slightly, confirming their guess. It won't be long before he openly tells everyone that he's the evil king, Yu Zhen. Even now, Zhu Zheniying won't be able to do anything to him if she learns that he's the evil king. So it's the evil king. Ghost King Chuling was completely convinced. And Zicheng glared at him and said, "Old man, you're full of evil tricks. You never tell me anything, and you make me worry about you every day." "What are you worried about?" Anwen chuckled softly. "With Chuling looking after you in the open and evil king in the dark, who will be able to do anything to you in the land of terror. You're not worried about Yu Yuan, are you? I've been telling the evil king about his past from time to time ever since I learned that he's a promising young man. The evil king didn't leave the land of terror because he knew that he had an outstanding descendant like Yu Yuan. That's why, as soon as he sets foot in the land of terror and the evil king learns about it, he'll definitely do everything he can to get Yu Yuan to join his side. What do you have to worry about?" Anwen teased with a smile. And Zicheng pouted and didn't answer. She was angry on the inside. "Speaking of which, what do you think of the man I picked for you?" Anwen winked at her and asked. "You're so annoying." And Zicheng snorted coldly before turning into a purple streak of light and flying towards the blood god. The news that Bai Gu was about to reach the top spread like wildfire. The cultivators gathered around the land of terror all left after seeing that the dust had settled. On the other hand, the specters that had fled earlier returned to the land of terror after learning that Bai Gu had won and that the land of terror's fate was sealed. At the same time, many earth devils, Yin gods, and even heavenly devils secretly entered the land of terror. They waited for Bai Gu to come out so that they could get close to him and offer their loyalty to the one and only ruler of ghosts and gods. Chapter 840. In the desolate forgotten land, on the island at the center of the lake where Yu Zhu lived. Under the early morning clouds, the misty island at the center of the lake looked like the home of an immortal. Exhaling a breath of spiritual energy, one would feel refreshed, and all the pores on one's body would open up. The clear lake water contained abundant water power. If cultivators and greater demons who were close to water could cultivate in it, they would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. At this moment, people led by the Python Queen Su Zixi and the Chamber of Commerce's Zhu Painting were gathered here, their faces filled with worry. They had come to see Yu Zhu. Yu Zhu, who had successfully advanced to the 8th grade in the Goblin Temple and returned to the desolate Forgotten Land, had spent most of her time cultivating on the island and rarely left. Su Zixi had taken care of most of the affairs in the desolate Forgotten Land. She would only be consulted on important matters. For example, now, "Aunt Su is the Zhao clan. All right? Where's the Zhan clan?" Zhao Yafu and Zhan Tianxiang of the Goblin Temple were panting heavily as they hurried back from Spider City. The two of them had returned from the tranquil continent through a teleportation portal after receiving the news, and arrived here at the first possible moment. More cultivators from the Devil's Palace and the 7 great lesser sects also arrived one after another. "Don't worry. The Zhao clan and the Zhan clan are safe and sound. The Gao clan of Dark Moon City has been cleaned out. Almost all of their clansmen are dead." "How could this be?" Yen Lu muttered. "How did this happen?" He happened to be cultivating in the desolate Forgotten Land. After receiving the shocking news, he immediately went to find Su Zixi. Su Zixi attitude towards him was rather cold. She said meaningfully, Since something like this has happened to the Yen clan, you'd better stay away from it and cut off all contact with it. Yen Gui, the patriarch of the Yen clan and the current emperor of the Devil Moon Empire, had suddenly wiped out many clans in the empire with bloody methods. The Gao clan and some other sects that had connections with the Goblin Temple and the Devil's Palace and the 7 great lesser sects were almost completely uprooted. Their clansmen had suffered heavy casualties. No one knew why Yen Gui was so agitated. Back then, under the support of the Devil's Palace, Yen Gui replaced the Silver Moon Queen, Li Yupan, and became the new king of the empire. That year, the Devil's Palace's Yu Demon Envoy and the Red Devil School's Zhou Tsangmin accompanied Yen Gui and helped him achieve this. In everyone's eyes, Yen Gui was a member of the Devil's Palace. No one could have foreseen that he would suddenly join forces with a group of mixed-blood outsiders to commit such a brutal act in his own country. They carried out a great purge that left everyone dumbfounded. Not only that, but Yen Gui also announced that the Demon Moon Empire had changed its name to the Silver Moon Empire and had formed an alliance with the Azure Phoenix Empire. Zhu Peining sighed slightly. According to the Chamber of Commerce, it was because Li Yupan secretly left the Forbidden Land of Fallen Moons, went to the Imperial Palace, and had a long talk with Yen Gui. Everyone knows that Yen Gui loves the Silver Moon Queen. Back then, it was because of Li Yupan that Yen Gui didn't lead the Yen clan to fight for the throne. Yen Gui didn't say anything after Li Yupan's death in the Land of Wasteland. Her Yin soul was separated from her body, and she was imprisoned. Now it seems that Yen Gui hated the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple back then. However, he knew that he couldn't fight back, so he held back and pretended to stand firmly on the side of the Devil's Palace to suppress the Li family. I vaguely remember that Li Yuchan's Yin soul wasn't destroyed, and his body was only imprisoned. Yen Gui asked Yu Demon Envoy and Zhou Tsangmin for this result. The Tongtian Trading Company had detailed records of this. Yen Gui was deeply in love. He had gone to great lengths to keep Li Yupan alive. In the end, after the Silver Moon Queen escaped and recovered her strength in the Forbidden Land of Fallen Moons, he resolutely chose to break off all ties with the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple. He also chose to break off all ties with the current sects in Howren. Within the Empire, all the clans related to the Devil's Palace, the Goblin Temple, and the 7 great sects of the Tianyuan continent that had participated in the massacre of the Li family were massacred overnight. Yen Gui announced with great fanfare that he had formed an alliance with the Azure Phoenix Empire ruled by Chen Liangquan. This meant that 2 empires on the Qianxian continent had changed sides and were leaning towards the Shenhun sect. It's strange that the Zhan clan and the Zhao clan weren't purged. Zhu Peining looked confused. These 2 clans were ordered to leave immediately. Of course, they could only come to the Land of Wasteland. Where else could they go? Whoosh! Clouds churned on the island at the center of the lake as Yutu's soul message was transmitted. Su Zishi was taken aback. She thought that Yutu was talking to her, but then Grey Crow suddenly appeared and communicated with Yutu. Grey Crow pondered for a moment before saying, "The fact that the Zhao clan and the Zhan clan were spared should have something to do with Yu Yuan." Yu Yuan? Zhao Yafu and Zhan Tianxiang exclaimed in shock. Zhu Peining of the Chamber of Commerce and the people from the 7 great sects were also at a loss. In the Land of Terror, a ghoul named White Bones has become a ghoul king with Yu Yuan's help. Not long ago, this White Bones Ghoul King defeated the Nether Capital Ghoul King and forced Ghoul King Tianzong to flee. With these words, Grey Crow started cursing again. That kid, Yu Yuan, has chosen White Bone to become the one and only ghost god in the Land of Terror. Yen Gui and the people behind him admire Yu Yuan very much. Because of Yu Yuan, the Zhan clan and the Zhao clan were spared from the bloody purge and were able to escape. He looked at the guests from Spider City who wanted to ask Yutu's opinion and said, "The Land of Wasteland will accept the Zhan clan and the Zhao clan." As for the survivors of the Silver Moon Empire, don't waste the Land of Wasteland's cultivation resources. He made the final decision. Yu Yuan! Yu Yuan! Many people who were close to Yu Yuan cried out in shock after hearing Grey Crow's word. They didn't know Bai Gu, they only knew Yu Yuan. When they learned that Yu Yuan was lucky enough to pick a random ghost, and that this ghost was going to become a ghost god from the Land of Terror, they were all envious and jealous. Ring ring ring. Zhu Peining, the person in charge of the Land of Wasteland, the bracelet on her wrist suddenly rang with urgent alarms. Many gazes fell on Zhu Peining. Those who knew the Tongtian Trading Company knew that something unexpected had happened. That was why her bracelet had reacted so strongly. Zhu Peining sensed it with a wisp of soul awareness. A moment later, her face turned ashen as she yelled, "The current emperor of the Heaven-Shaking Empire has announced that he has formed an alliance with the Blue Luan Empire and the Silver Moon Empire. Hybrids are allowed to walk openly in the Empire's territory, and they will no longer be surrounded and killed." What? Chen Liangquan's new rules are being implemented in the three empires of Qianxian continent? This is a public challenge to the 5 great sects. Everyone who heard the news looked at each other, dumbfounded. At this time, they suddenly had a feeling that the 5 great sects, led by the 3 great sects, the Devil's Palace and the Goblin Temple, were gradually losing their absolute control over Hauran. Even the empires of Qianxian continent dared to ignore the 5 great sections. Naturally, they had stronger backing. Naturally, it was the forbidden Shenhun sect. The desolate god sect had always been independent. The 5 great sects couldn't touch the Great Swamp. Now, the Land of Terror and the heaven-reaching mountain range controlled by the Zhuan were probably going to be added. 3 great empires had changed sides. The turmoil of the entire continent was unprecedented and subversive. Everyone fell silent, and their expressions were as serious as water. The Land of Terror. Yu Yuan didn't know about the great changes in the outside world. He didn't know that many ghosts, souls, and earth demons were crazily rushing into the Land of Terror. He only focused on his own cultivation. Inside the Yin Mountain, his Yin soul floated out and breathed in energy. Wisps of pure, silver Yin energy merged into his Yin god's soul and nourished every wisp of his soul, causing his Yin god to become clearer and clearer when he was exposed to the outside world. Whoosh! His Yin soul floated around inside the cave, familiarizing itself with the shape of a soul. Suddenly, he sensed that there were shouts coming from thousands of miles away. Chapter 841. It sounded as if the person was crying, as if they had been forced to do so. Yu Yuan was convinced that he had never heard such a cry before, and that it definitely didn't belong to anyone or anything he knew. Judging from the distance, the cry didn't come from the Land of Terror or the Forbidden Land of Falling Moons. Instead, it seemed to come from somewhere on the tranquil continent. This is strange. Nye Tian, who was in the middle of his cultivation, suddenly stopped. With a whoosh, his nether soul returned to his body. Eyebrows furrowed, he examined himself with rapt attention, hoping to find out what had caused the cry to come from afar. It's not a sword soul. It's not a baleful demon cauldron. Eyebrows furrowed, he couldn't find the source of the cry. After pondering for a long time, he realized that the cry had suddenly stopped. He tried to figure out what had caused it, but to no avail. Since he couldn't find an answer for the time being, he decided to put it aside for the time being. Instead, he continued to refine his nether soul with the Great Yin Soul Incantation and the Extreme Wisdom Soul Tempering Incantation to improve his wisdom and intuition. After entering the nether soul stage, the fact that it could leave his body in the Land of Terror and cleanse his soul with the Yin Qi in this heaven and earth was definitely a great blessing. However, since he had refined his nether soul in the Land of Terror, he was blessed by the heavens. Every time he cleansed his nether soul, the Chi he obtained would be even purer and more refined. He didn't want to miss this opportunity. It wasn't long before his nether soul left his body and returned to his cultivation in the Mountain range. It didn't take long for the mournful cries to reach the small world in his sea of consciousness and form a blurry picture. In a dark, desolate hall made of gray stone, 3 colored glaze lamps were burning, releasing grayish-green flames. Inside the covers of the colored glaze lamps, 3 emaciated female souls could be seen. Being burned by the flames, they let out heart-wrenching screams. The oil under the colored glaze lamps was the color of blood. The female souls, whose faces couldn't be seen, swayed with the candlelight. Every time they wriggled, they seemed to become more ethereal. For some reason, as soon as this image appeared in Yu Yuan's mind, he felt as if his 3 souls were being burned by the grayish-green flames. The emaciated woman's pain seemed to affect his soul even though they were thousands of miles apart. Even his soul felt an intense pain. At the same time, a complicated emotion that he had never felt before suddenly appeared in his heart, making him feel even more aggrieved for every bit of pain the blurry woman suffered. No. He couldn't help but roar. In the next moment, the scene in his mind disappeared. When he woke up, he saw that his spirit had returned. His forehead and neck were full of sweat, as if he had just gone through a thrilling and bloody battle. Why is it that when that woman is being burned by the flames, I am in even more pain than her? Why is it so hard for me to stay sane when I hear her cries of pain? Why do I feel like I'm about to go crazy and start a massacre? I don't even know her. A series of questions surfaced in Yu Yuan's mind, leaving him puzzled. Over the next few days, similar experiences and scenes appeared again and again. Inside the gray stone palace, the glass lamp burned, and the blurry woman's soul being burned by the grayish-green flames. It was like a nightmare that repeatedly tormented him. His cultivation path was forced to stop, and he could no longer focus. What made him even more uneasy was that the blurry woman's soul was becoming fainter and fainter. This gave him a feeling that the woman's soul wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. No, I have to know where the problem is. He stood up from the bottom of Mountain, walked out of the mountain, and stood outside. In the distance, the tall Mountain that White Bone had refined gave off brilliant silver light. It gathered vast amounts of energy and helped White Bone cleanse its body and transform its soul. He knew that when White Bone stepped out of Mountain, it would be the ultimate ghost god that had never been born since the Land of Terror was formed. It only existed in legends. The underground consciousness was also doing its best to help White Bone achieve this feat during this time. He couldn't contact White Bone, and he couldn't seem to communicate with the source of the vein. His connection to the soul pool and the space with the words, "Extreme intelligence will be injured," was cut off because of this. The source of the vein, that had been repaired by the Great Tao, didn't have the weakness of the malignant tumor that was Dark North Capital. It could completely isolate this world. The period when White Bone became a ghost god was very critical and sensitive. It wouldn't allow anyone to destroy it, including Yu Yuan. "Young Master Yu, what are your orders?" The raccoon-shaped ghost suddenly appeared and bowed. It said with a humble expression, "Lord White Bone said that I will fulfill any of your orders. I represent Lord White Bone. When he is in seclusion, you can order me as you wish." "Help me find Luoho," Yu Yuan said. "All right." The ghost that had followed White Bone into the sky nodded and bowed. It answered with a chuckle and flew away. Yu Yuan calmed down and waited. An hour later, a 7-colored ray of light flew over and stopped at the foot of the Mountain. "Junior brother, why did you suddenly appear?" Luo Yu glared at him and said, "You have just entered the spirit realm, and can refine your spirit as much as you want in the land of despair. You should cherish it. The disputes outside have nothing to do with you for the time being." You heard what Tian Sang said before he left, right? Before Tian Tsang left, he also said that he hoped that he could cultivate in the land of despair. This meant that the situation outside was too turbulent, and the Shunhun sect couldn't control the situation. When Yu Yuan had just entered the Yin spirit realm, staying in the land of despair was definitely the best choice. I have something to ask for your opinion, Yu Yuan said. You can talk. The raccoon-shaped ghost cupped its hands and said, Young Master Yu, my Yin mountain currently has the richest Yin Qi in Lord Whitebone's territory. You know that Lord Whitebone also needs to cultivate, so it's not good to let you in at this time. If you want to go to Lord Luoho's Yin mountain, it's up to you. Lord Whitebone said that no ghost would dare to attack you in the land of despair. It had misunderstood and thought that Yu Yuan didn't want to cultivate on its own mountain. It has nothing to do with that. Yu Yuan waved his hand and didn't explain. He motioned for it to leave first, then led Luo Yu into the Yin mountain. Before entering the mountain, he said, Senior Martial Sister, do you want to cast a spell to build a soul barrier? Don't be so cautious. You're in Bai Gu's territory and so close to the Mountain of Bones. No one can eavesdrop on our conversation. Luo Yu was angry and amused at the same time. Bai Gu is in the process of merging with heaven and earth, and its aura is sealed. You're being too cautious. Oh. Yu Yuan scratched his head and didn't hide anything. He told her the strange scenes that had happened in the past few days in detail. Luo Yu's expression turned cold and gloomy halfway through his story. However, Luo Yu did not interrupt him midway. Instead, she patiently waited for him to finish. Senior Martial Sister, do you know what happened? Seeing her expression, Yu Yuan knew that she knew something. I didn't know that blurry woman, and I didn't hear her voice. Why did her mournful cries hurt my heart so much? Luo Yu took a deep breath and calmed her soul. She said, That's the heavenly evil sect's evil art, soul-searing art. It uses that woman's blood essence as the lamp oil. After it's lit, it burns her soul to search for her closest relatives. By closest relatives, you mean her birth parents or her biological children. Once the evil art is cast, the soul of the person who cast it will be ignited, and they will be in so much pain that they wish they were dead. When the person's closest relatives reach a certain cultivation realm, they will be able to sense it. A certain cultivation realm refers to at least the Yin spirit realm. Luo Yu didn't continue. That was because she saw Yu Yuan's expression suddenly turn sinister, as if a barrel of gunpowder had been ignited and would explode in the next moment. She and I are? Yu Yuan stammered. He couldn't even say a simple sentence smoothly. His entire body was trembling. She's your birth mother, Luo Yu said with a soft sigh. My mother. Yu Yuan trembled even more violently, as if an ice blade had pierced into his sea of consciousness, causing him to feel both pain and coldness. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. When Hanch was born, he was an orphan adopted by his master. He didn't know his parents, and had never experienced familial affection. After awakening in this life, he finally felt a bit of familial affection from his grandfather, Hong Kan. Later on, he heard that his parents had gone to the depths of the frigid depths of the 9 underworlds to seek medicine to cure his muddle-headedness. They hadn't returned since then, and had most likely died there. Later on, Bai Shenshin of the Heavenly Medicine sect had said that there was something else, but she hadn't revealed the details. Until now. His mother's soul had been imprisoned in 3 colored glass lamps by the heavenly evil sect's soul-searing art, and they had used her blood essence as the lamp oil. He immediately understood that the heavenly evil sect must have figured out the relationship between the Yu family and the evil king Yu Chan. That was why his father had died in this life, and his mother had been reduced to such a state. Originally, he had felt that he hadn't let down the Yu family. Other than his grandfather, only a few of his family members had cared about it, because he knew that even though he was Yu Yuan, He wasn't just Yu Yuan. However, at this moment, after learning about what had happened to his mother in this life, he actually exploded. Chapter 842. Calm down. Luo Yu frowned deeply. From Yu Yuan's expression and behavior, she could tell that he was about to go crazy. Don't be rash. No matter who casts the spell, their goal is to lure you away from the land of terror. Bai Gu's ascension had ruined the three high sects, the Devil's Palace, and the Goblin Temple's plan to support the Nether capital. On the surface, Yu Yuan was an accomplice. Furthermore, Yu Yuan had almost killed Mo Yen through a spatial tunnel in the soul refining pool. Behind Mo Yen was Zhu Zhening, the second in command of the Devil's Palace, a nascent soul realm cultivator. Yu Yuan had not only ruined the three high sects, the Devil's Palace, and the Goblin Temple's plan, but also offended Zhu Zhening. If he left the land of terror now, he would be in great danger. I can guess what's going on. Yu Yuan took deep breaths to adjust his state of mind. However, the scene of his mother's soul burning still appeared in the depths of his mind. Every time it appeared, he felt a heart-wrenching pain in his chest. The Heavenly Evil sect must have known that the Yu clan was related to the evil king, Yu Zhen. The current sect master of the Heavenly Evil sect was Bai Gu's direct disciple, and he had a close relationship with Zhu Zhening. Perhaps it was to curry favor with Zhu Zhening, or perhaps it was to get rid of future troubles, so it had used the soul-searing art to force him out of the land of terror with his mother's soul. As long as he left the land of terror and wanted to save his mother, he would definitely die. Even if he had broken through to the Een God realm, with the fiendish demon cauldron and the scabbard, he would not be able to contend against the Heavenly Evil sect. Not to mention that Zhu Zhening was secretly supporting the Heavenly Evil sect. I understand how you feel, but now is not the time for you to leave, Luo Yu said kindly. This is clearly a trap set up by them to force you out. Think about it. If you dare to approach the land of terror, what awaits you? I know. Angrily rubbing his hair, Yu Yuan squatted on the cold ground of the Een mountain like a trapped beast. From time to time, his eyes sparkled with the fierce light of desperation. I can feel that if this continues, her soul will perish. Luo Yu sighed softly. It's best to wait for White Bones to successfully become a specter god. After he becomes a specter god, he'll probably stand up for your mother. After all, she is the daughter-in-law of the Yu family. You guessed it? Yu Yuan was startled. The heretic King Yu Zhen from 700 years ago, the patriarch of your Yu family. Luo Yu nodded. Since he said that he cultivated to the essence soul realm after his successful reincarnation, he should have been able to reach the essence soul realm. Within 1,000 years, there were only a few who had attained the immortal soul. Later on, I thought about it for a while, and thought about how you changed sides at the last moment, and I roughly understood. Tiansong had guessed it, Luo Yu had guessed it, and the Thousand Tribulations Ghost King had probably guessed it as well. White Bones didn't try to hide it anymore. He said that when he came out of seclusion and cultivated to the Spectre God realm, he would announce his former identity to the world. He's in seclusion. I can't predict when he'll come out. What I'm worried about is that it'll be too late by the time he comes out. Yu Yuan felt a headache coming on. The enemy chose this moment because they knew that he would be in seclusion. They're targeting you. Luo Yu also saw the situation clearly. She repeatedly advised Yu Yuan to calm down. She stayed in the cave and didn't go anywhere else, afraid that Yu Yuan would act rashly. Yu Yuan was no longer in the mood to cultivate. He sat on the ground, restless and restless. Over the next few days, the Heavenly Evil sect used the soul-searing art of searching for kin many times to transmit the images to Yu Yuan so that she could sense the general location. At the foot of the Heavenly Evil sect's mountain was a place called Evil Spirit Town. Naturally, this town belonged to the heavenly evil sect. It was the place where the members of the sect lived. Many elders and disciples of the heavenly evil sect would bring beautiful women and men with them when they traveled the Qian continent. Those people were usually only in the shattering profound realm and didn't have room for further breakthroughs. They didn't deserve to join the heavenly evil sect. These people were arranged to live in Evil Spirit Town. His mother of this life was in Evil Spirit Town. A heavenly evil sect grand cultivator had cast a spell on her through the bloodline and evil secret arts to make her feel something. 2 days later, the exhausted Yu Yuan actually fell asleep and had a nightmare. After waking up from the nightmare, he broke out in a cold sweat and suddenly made an unwise decision. I'm going to Evil Spirit Town. He looked at Luo Yu, who was guarding the cave entrance, with a determined gaze. I know it's unwise, and I know what I'll face, but I still have to go. I won't go. If she dies, I'll have to bear a heavy psychological burden. Because of this, I'll give birth to a heart demon that will flare up fiercely in the future. A knot in the heart gives birth to a heart demon. This heart demon. Luo Yu thought for a while and sighed. I'll go with you. Her identity as the former sect master of the voodoo sect had been exposed. If she left the land of terror now, she might be targeted by the current sect master and the medicine god sect. As a ghost king, it would be difficult to deal with people outside the land of terror. Whether it was Zhong Chichen or the current sect master, with their freedom realm cultivation, they would be suppressed by the great Tao in the land of terror and could be killed by her. However, once she went out, it would be hard to say. No need. I'll go alone. Yu Yuan shook his head. If you go with me, you'll be a bigger target. Silly junior brother, she's already used the soul-searing art. You're dreaming if you want to hide your aura and identity. Luo Yu glared at him. As long as you go out, she'll be able to locate you in an instant if she uses that evil art again. No matter what you do, it won't be effective. I'll invite a helper, Yu Yuan said. A helper? Luo Yu snorted. What kind of helper? A primordial soul realm cultivator? Let me tell you, even if you invite Zuan, it might not be effective in Evil Spirits Town. The person behind this must have the tacit approval of the heavenly evil sect master. Zuan won't be a match for that person in Evil Spirits Town. Furthermore, this matter might even involve Zhu Zhenying. Yu Yuan said, Senior sister, since you know it's so dangerous, don't get involved. You know where I went. When he comes out of seclusion and becomes a ghost immortal, you can tell him what happened. Even though she knew how dangerous this trip was, Luo Yu still insisted on coming with him. This touched Yu Yuan and made him even more reluctant to let her come. No, I have to go with you. If worse comes to worst, I'll communicate with the Netherworld River and return directly, Luo Yu said confidently. Don't worry. If I can't save you, I won't care if you live or die. She said it lightly, but Yu Yuan knew that the Ghost King's escape art wasn't omnipotent. If the other party set up a trap and sealed the world with a restriction array, her Ghost King's escape art might not work. Then let's go out first. Yu Yuan saw that he couldn't persuade her, and he was worried about his mother's condition, so he didn't insist. A human and a Ghost King. He sorted out his thoughts and talked to the raccoon-shaped ghost. Then, he ignored the ghost's attempts to stop him and walked out of the land of terror. In the outside world, there were blue skies and white clouds. Yu Yuan. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.